welcome to another banger week, another banger stream back with MCG. Guys, I hope y'all are doing okay. Seriously, the weekend was rough. I mean, we had the flash crash over the weekend. Some estimates, some starting with 20 billion in liquidations, but some estimates saying even anywhere between 50 and 60 billion in liquidations. So hope you guys have been doing well. Hope you guys are okay. First of all, Dom, how you doing, bro? How's the weekend?
Doing good, bro. Crazy. Leverage is the devil, guys. Leverage is the devil. Don't trade leverage. Get that spot. But I'm doing great. I think the bounces are nice. Actually, like I said, hopefully not a lot of our listeners got too badly hurt from that crash. Again, like leverage or something like that is super unpredictable. So I can see where that hit people pretty badly. But I'm doing good, man. I think it was a good flush out. It'll be interesting, kind of the post mortem, to see what necessarily caused that much of a crash if someone actually does a good analysis on it. Obviously, this was caused from Trump basically suggesting 130% tariffs on China for imports. And this was a retaliatory measure because I think China did something that I'm not exactly sure of. But that being said, yeah, pretty crazy weekend. We're seeing some insane liquidations out there. So yeah, I like Chill said, the estimates are kind of being bounced around. Some people say 20 bills, some people say much more. But I'm good, and I think it was a bullish flush out ultimately. And I'm excited to see us continue higher, reset the scales there for leverage. So
And the other thing to note is anybody with leverage above 1.3x got liquidated. Just to put that into perspective, right?
wow.
So it's this was a crazy flush out. So I mean, this happens. Manage your risk. Be careful out there using leverage. They say there's three things that will take smart guys out of the market: one, leverage; two, ladies; and three, I forgot what the third one was, but
Those two will do it though.
ladies and leverage will definitely take you out on the stretcher. So be careful out there, Chads. But we got a banger stream today, man. We got Zara coming on here in a few. Um, before we get them on though, we'll kind of talk markets real quick, kind of expectations for the week, things we're looking at, and we'll kind of get into the interview. Um, let me see. Let me pull up. Let me share my chart here real quick. I'll share my screen. Let's look at BTC. All right, boom. Bitcoin. Literally last week, I was tweeting about this rejection that we got here at 124K at the all-time highs, and literally, I was like, all right, look, I'm hoping that we, stay above 117K to stay bullish. But like literally, as I was tweeting that, Trump had tweeted out his tariff news, and so we just absolutely nuked. But one thing I wanted to note though was the higher low, right? The higher low, we held the old all-time high. I'm still looking at 117 as a key area to reclaim. But I think Trump has already walked back his tariff remarks, so we should be good. I believe technically today might be even a holiday, if I'm not mistaken, in the US. But I'm not there. I think there's something today. I think it's like Columbus Day or something. Either way, though, we'll see. I'm really going to pay attention to tomorrow's price action on equities to see kind of how TradFi is reacting to all this. But so far, statements have been walked back, so we'll see how everything plays out. We even see stuff like stocks. We see gold continuing to rally. So let's see how the rest of the week goes, but really confident in this bounce, confident in the higher lows, so still bullish on a high time frame. Beyond that, like, I hope you guys are paying attention. Prediction markets, ICM projects bouncing heavy, but one thing that we also are seeing is privacy. Have you been checking out Zec any, Dom?
So that's one of the few I haven't looked into much. I'm still trying to. There we go. No, I haven't really looked into ZC much. I've been mostly focused on Santa. and Karma and some of the stuff on Solana. Is ZEC on Solana or is that its own chain? I'm not
I
super
think
familiar.
I'm not. Let me check. I don't think it's on Solana, if I'm not mistaken. I thought it was like like an exchange, like on exchanges. I think that's where people were getting this mostly, from what I remember. But I don't think it's Solana specific. No. But I have not looked into it. Like literally, privacy was not on my radar at all. Like literally at all. And then you see something like Zec just going absolutely nuts. Actually, let me pull up the chart real quick so I can like show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Because Zec is just going stupid.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing a few narratives, right? You got the neobank narrative heating up right now. You have the privacy narrative really heating up right now, which is perfect timing to get Dax from Zero in here. And we got a few people in the chat. I guess I'll just highlight real quick, guys. Love the ZMs. We do GICM, GMCG here, but I'm loving the ZMs. Obviously, shout out Zero. These are Zero community members. So nice to see you guys coming in strong, supporting. We're excited to have this conversation today, shortly here. Once Dax joins, just making sure he's got the link and stuff. That's right.
ZM's in the chat, man. Jesus, Zara community is in the house. Yeah, for sure. Y'all are going crazy in the chat. Going crazy in the chat. Love to see it, man. Love
But
to
let's
see it.
talk privacy then, and then we can do a little Zero thesis and breakdown for those that don't know much about it, and then we'll get into the interview. So thanks for joining us, guys. We're excited. Jill, go ahead, take away ZC from there.
Yeah, so ZEC, this is basically what put, privacy on the map, and that's what's causing like this whole narrative to catch a bit. As you can see over these last basically like the last like 2 weeks, it's literally been up only since the start of October. And then it became even more noticeable on Friday when we got the mass liquidation. Yeah, you saw that pullback here. You see the pullback like right here, right? But at the end of the day, that dip got eaten and it just continued to grind up. And we see a slight little pullback today. But this is what's kind of Zcash is literally what's making this narrative go absolutely nuclear. And I think from what I'm understanding is Zcash is a little bit more of an older solution, and so the market is kind of sniffing out like where are the real solutions out here. And I think that's where something like a Zera comes into play, because there was a chart that I saw on Zera that kind of explained Zera, kind of against all the other solutions in the market. So I'm gonna see if I can pull this up real quick. But I also thought that this was pretty interesting here. So as you can see, like one of Zera's moats is offline payment, something that I want to ask them about. Like this to me is huge and something that I even was like, dang, like that's actually pretty dope. Stablecoin support, and then also deflationary tokenomics, RWA payments. Like Zera is obviously doing something crazy here. So we'll be asking a ton of questions. Before we really get into it, guys, if you do have any questions for the Zera team, put them in the comment section now. Let us know what you guys want to ask about. Let us know any questions that you guys wanted to want for us to ask. We'll be happy to really dig in as deep as we can about Zera. But even outside of Zera, you also see this Zec price action, the Zcash price action is really also like just again blowing the head off of privacy, and we've seen things like Umbra from MetaDAO pop off as well. So again, we'll see how long this narrative lasts, but I think this is all kind of coming to a head, and it's bringing this sort of this ETH native ethos to Solana. Like, how many ETH utility seasons have we had? And like every one, privacy was one of the ones that popped off, right? It's more native to ETH, but now we're seeing a lot of that excitement coming here native to Solana. So We'll see how things play out. You know, we have a lot of like catalysts ahead, not only for privacy, but also for Z, or also for Zero. I have a concern more than a question. You all don't hold enough Zero. I actually like this layout right here, Dom. Yeah, like Zero. I don't hold enough, dude. Like I actually heard about Zero when it was money, like money with the three, and again, like privacy just wasn't on my radar at all. You know, I know privacy runs when ETH has like a utility season, but I haven't seen anybody like talk about privacy at all. So yeah, let's pull up this Zero chart real quick here. Zero's actually looking like a nice little bid zone right there too. I'm gonna actually chart up Zero while we're while we're talking about it, because I feel like it looks like it's in a really nice area. Let me see, 11 mil, good R&R, or no,
Yeah,
not 11.
it's really
I'm sorry,
nice. Yeah, I'll
30.
actually talk about Viva or Zero. I've been muted, ironically, dude. I'm an idiot. But yeah, dude, the price action looks great. This migrated over, took a day or two to kind of work itself out. But since we had that big liquidation, this has actually made new all-time highs. So super impressive price action there. And I mean, based on the little bit we have, again, because this is a migration from money. Based on the little bit we have, we are in a pretty nice range here, right? I would say generally based on these last couple days, anything that stabs down here, especially considering the price action we've had in crypto, is probably a pretty good buy. I mean, we got the worst of it basically last Friday because of this tariff news. And if this could sustain that as the dip and then create new all-time highs shortly after, I think it's probably safe to say it's going to take a lot to really get this thing going lower. I think I saw the community say there were people fudding. I don't even know what the FUD could be, but this isn't a great zone. Typically, FUD is just a great entry for projects established like this. I've seen Dax has been in New York quite a bit. I'm excited to kind of talk about what he's been doing or not in New York, in Texas quite a bit. I'm excited to talk
Yep.
about what he's been doing in Texas and his progression over there and, why he's been attending meetings and stuff, but excited to have him on soon.
Yeah, I heard there was like some like legislation that they were pushing in Texas. So I definitely want to dig into that a little bit more. Um, and yeah, just like I saw on the timeline that there was, I don't know what the FUD is, but to me it seems kind of baseless. It's really like it's really easy to like try to FUD a project after like a market wide like nuclear crash, right? Oh well, price is going down. Well, if you don't look, if you want to zoom out and look at everything, everything is down, right? Like so yeah, like this is really a project that I want to dig into. Uh how much longer until the Zero team comes in? Maybe like 5 minutes or so, would you say?
They're good to join here at 12:30. So whenever they want, they can join up. I've sent them the links both through email and Dax's Twitter DM. So if Dax are watching this, feel free to join up there. In the meantime, though, happy to just talk about some
Yeah.
bull cases I see on Zero. I see Kenzo put out a cool one the other day. Kenzo's a guy I used to follow back in ETH days a little more. I used to see his stuff much more often. So kind of interesting. I'm seeing him pop up again here with Zero, but he makes a pretty good bull case here. He goes, start to build a position with size and Zero on Solana, which is X money. Bet everyone can see that projects like ZEC, which we talked about, just covered, are running hard. Well, I put my money on Zero here. Privacy Meta is a safe haven for Solana liquidity right now, and here's why. Zero is my top pick. So he said the launch is closer than ever. The launch is closer than ever. We already have proof of concept on that. The mainnet launch is coming. This will turn the token deflationary and kickstart Zero flywheel. So really interesting there. I'm gonna have to ask Dax about the flywheel and what the Zero tokens utility is. But clearly there's something there to touch on. We talk a bit about Dax here. Dev skill issue is his handle. Ex Morgan Stanley CEO, consulting because of Zero Labs, affinity with the Texas Blockchain Council. Dax has actually secured former Morgan Stanley CEO and chairman as a consultant, guiding Zero's post-migration financial structure. That's huge. Really awesome to see. ecosystem token. Unlike other privacy plays, Zero powers a whole ecosystem of products and on-chain businesses, driving continuous value accrual to the native token. Market cap is 25 mil right now. So pretty interesting, right? You see a utility token with a flywheel about to kick in. You see some pretty big names on the team. You see a hardworking dev like Dax, going to Texas, talking to councils, lobbying at some level here. So interesting post. I just felt like, it was worth highlighting, I guess, to give you guys some context before getting into this. But we're excited about the privacy meta. This is one of the leaders right now in that meta. And like I said, Dax is clearly putting in some work. So super excited. There's your thesis. Hopefully that helped you guys get an idea before they join up here.
And then the other thing, like they're actually, again, just showing how they're really like trying to be in line on the regulatory side. You see that they literally have a filing right here for Zero Labs LLC. So they're trying to make things official. I love the fact that they're doing things that are in compliant with regulation. We saw how things went with stuff like Tornado Cash and with the Tornado Cash dev. And so obviously there's some sort of like threat when it comes to privacy. So I saw that they were basically like creating a standard, for like privacy projects and how they can, once meeting this standard, are basically like free of any sort of like regulatory attack or like jail time or anything like that. So I like the fact that they're not only paving the way for themselves but others as well. I saw you unmuted there for a sec.
No, yeah, this is cool. Just continue highlighting. I'm just sending some messages out, trying to make sure. I'm wondering. I sent them the link. I'm trying to make sure they got it here. The thing is, the zero account doesn't actually have DMs open, and I can't send the guest link in like comments.
Hey chat, spam your TG, spam your Discord. Let them know that we sent them the link, that they have it, and they can join up whenever they'd like. Let me see.
But yeah, exciting conversation to have here. I can just run through their Twitter too in the meantime and cover some stuff here. Let's cover the migration. I guess this is pretty prevalent to this conversation here. Okay, go ahead.
Now the migration, yeah.
Yeah, obviously for those that are unaware, I wish I could make this thing bigger here. Maybe I'll just full screen it in the meantime. So for those that are unaware, Zero obviously went through a migration. They went from monopoly money to Zero, which is much needed migration. I think this was like a difficult ticker. The M0N3Y was like a difficult ticker, and I think the Zero is much more well thought out. So I'm happy they did that. So this migration just happened, which is why it's a fresh chart. But I guess we'll just kind of get into why. So I said, start with why. How money became Zero and the vision. A company level push to verifiable online cash and scalable ZKP ecosystem, which is zero knowledge proof ecosystem. From money to Zero. We could read that. This is obviously a longer form thread. And then the how. Zero turns the asset you already hold into private portable digital cash, unified privacy rails for USDC, USDT, SOL, and more. TLDR inside, which we can read up a little bit on. Let's see. Okay, so maybe. Okay, that's a pretty long tweet. We're probably not going to read that whole thing, but let's see. I'll read the start here. Engineering evolution, introduction to the Zero protocol, a unified financial privacy layer, TLDR. I love that they put the TLDR just right on the top there. The Zero protocol turns the asset you already hold, USDC, USDT, SOL, Bitcoin, ETH, etc., into private, portable, secure digital cash. A single unified compressed ZK pool replaces fragmented mixers, enabling shields, balanced private transfers, offline P2P, and seamless hooks into DeFi, while protocol usage burns Zero, directly aligning value with real adoption. Love that. This is not a mixer nor a fork that forces you into synthetic wrappers, volatile side assets, or risky bridges. It's a paradigm shift, direct deposit privacy rails that is token, and chain agnostic, composable, and built for real usage at scale. If you're new to Zero, read this article. I remember getting this too at like 400 or 500K when Zero was first getting started. I had some interesting confluence here. guess I'll pull our faces back up. Interesting confluence here where a lot of smart people were reaching out to me about Zira and really highlighting the fact that this could be the next big thing. It's really interesting. They're doing something different. I know they have like offline transfers as well enabled, which is something you don't typically see. But they also have a hardware, I believe. I would love to dig more into, but just super cool stuff. Super cool stuff. So
Yeah, Zero, man. I got Zero when it was money, and again, just privacy just wasn't on my radar, man. I do regret it. I do regret it, but I think based on what we're seeing so far and what we'll get out of this interview, like I definitely might consider taking a stab, especially since we're at like a decent area here. Um, there was one thing that I did want to highlight too, real quick, which we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but here it is. Let me share my screen. So yeah, this is kind of what I wanted to highlight here. So as you can see, Zera Labs has submitted a constituent-led policy proposal in Texas. This is kind of what I want to dig in because essentially this is a framework to anchor digital privacy rights in law. He spent a lot of time at Capitol Hill. Um, Bipartisan push, so both sides of the aisle here. Um, and there was also one other thing that there was one part of this article that kind of talked about basically that they're setting a standard essentially for, here we go, right here. So at its core, the act recognized mathematical soundness as a legal standard. Um, Protocols that can formally prove integrity and privacy via ZKPs demonstrating completeness, soundness, and true zero knowledge earn explicit protections. I think this is really, really important, for us to kind of dig into a little bit here. And I want to see, like, if this is just the start of them kind of venturing into the legislation side of things, or like, can we expect more legislation to come out. So there's a lot of different things to keep our eyes on here. But it says the act extended beyond primitives to privacy enhancing architectures, P2P communications, VPNs, and non-custodial systems for self-custody. So I just love this. Again, this paves the way not only for Zira, but it also helps anyone else building in this space. It kind of reminds me of Polymarket a little bit, or not Polymarket. Was it Kalshi that was kind of like going through years and years of just legal battles and essentially like paving the way for the rest of prediction markets?
That was there's a lot of examples of that. Kalshi, actually Poly Markets was really one of them. But I was actually talking to Avi Patel the other day from Cled, and he was saying this like we're kind of in that stage of crypto right now where there's kind of some legal gray area. But he looked at things like Uber, looked at things like Polymarket, which when they were working and building, technically were actually illegal. So it's interesting to see that Dax is pushing this. And speaking of, we just got him on, so excited to pull him up and pick his brain. Dax, what's going on, brother?
I am so sorry. I had a call with Trezor, and then I had a call scheduled 2 weeks ago with Jake, and then at time zones. So migrate to fun team, and then I'm like 11:30 to 12, and then I can jump on at 12:30, and it's like, oh wait, you said Eastern time, and it was all my bad.
Dude, no, you're good. You're good. You're one of the first teams I communicated with via email to like get you on schedule because everyone's so Web3 crypto centric. I'm just going through Twitter, going through Telegram, and so I was like, man, I hope I didn't send something wrong or send the wrong link or something. But you're with us, and that's all that matters. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We're gearing up for that real business venture. Like I said, I've been traveling all week. As you can see, I'm in Dallas right now. I just finished TexCap for the unveiling of the Texas stock market, and the Texas stock market has agreed to allow to be a first party liquidity pool and like trading platform for cryptocurrency as well. So we were meeting with the actual stock exchange to talk about listings, talk about working like that. On all that kind of stuff. There's a really cool interview with the head of the new exchange on my X. But then on top of that, it was NABS, North American Blockchain Summit. And the real big deal with like a project and be legitimate, especially working in the privacy space, is making sure we have our ass covered legally. So that's both why like emails everything. And I met with Wilson Strom, Gray Reed, 4 or 5 of the biggest international SEC privacy and law firms in the world. And I went to dinner with them. It was amazing. They stuffed me full of really good barbecue. And the team and I were moving forward with some really amazing firms and representation. Because I saw some stuff on there that I wasn't really going to like bring up or like talk about on Twitter, which was like, oh, coins like this and projects like this always die because of legislation. I'm like, that's why we're taking on legislation first. That's why I'm building in public. I'm talking about this as I'm building it, and I'm meeting with lawyers, stakeholders. 2 weeks ago, I met with Austin. I met with 41 different members of the Texas legislature to talk about privacy law, and making sure that all this stuff is being built responsibly.
Okay. We got a lot to unpack there. You just
Absolutely.
I guess we should probably, before we even get into just everything you just threw at us here, let's start with you, Dax, because a lot of people are going to watch this back that don't actually know what Zira is. You have a great community here that's just holding it down, super active in the chat here. But we got to start from the start. So first and foremost, Dax, who are you? Why are you so interested in privacy and hardware? And then we'll get into what is Zira.
Yeah, so I'm Dax the developer. I am a senior software engineer. I have worked all over the industry. After my internship with Exton with some open source places, I ended up at USAA building the credit card experience, debt obligations, all that stuff, legal compliance, and how your credit card actually works with the bank. And I worked with USAA directly there. And then I left and did some live streaming, did some of that, got into the creator space, worked with Mr. Beast projects, stuff like that in the background as the devs there. And through that community, I met Eric Bichard, who was the head of DevRel at MetaMask. And for 2-3 years, I worked really closely with MetaMask and the MetaMask team. I was even a DevRel rad contributor. I got on stage at ETH Global New York and Permissionless 2023 here in Austin. And that was super, super fun. I got to learn about the new SDK, build experiences and demos, and help build the open source community through that. After that, the tech market slowed a little bit. I worked for an AI-based advertising agency. Didn't like that. Didn't like how they stole all the customers' data, put it into a big bucket, and then tried to train into Terminator AI on that stuff, and didn't have ethicists or people on staff that would really call out, hey, this thing's turning out really unethical ads or just anything to get engagement. And so I left there. And I ended up at Foundry for a little bit, working at one of their sites out in West Texas. And at that time, with the market as slow as it was in general for tech, not just for crypto, but like in general for tech at the start of the year, things were picking back up. So I decided, hey, I have some money saved. I'm going to work on a PhD. And I wanted to go back to school and do my PhD thesis on math and science. And it really fell into that cryptography land. And I fell in love with zero knowledge proofs because I've been working with them off and on, especially at MetaMask, working with the Ethereum chain, ZK Sync, ZK Scroll. I love the team at ZK Scroll. Huge shout out.
Not to pause you while you're going here, but maybe explain to us what ZKPs are and zero knowledge proofs. I know that's a big part of what you're building. So just to help us non-tech bros out there, what is a ZKP simply?
So zero knowledge proof, or depending on the type, there's a bunch of different types, but there's a succinct argument of zero knowledge. But they all fall under something called a VC, verifiable computing, right? It's this really old school idea. I kid you not. Verifiable computing can go all the way back to the 80s. The idea that you can write certain small functions to track bigger things. So the early forms of verifiable computing were like you could get something small like a cell phone would be able to monitor an entire supercomputer correctly. Without all that extra compute to monitor it, because you could do simple math equations to check whether the complex thing it was doing was right or wrong. So when we came into zero knowledge proofs, the idea was was this. Have you guys ever played the game Where's Waldo? Right? You get the booklet, you get the book, you got the, and there's a guy in there with his pinstripe suit. If I were to just walk up to you on the street, hold up a picture and go, I know where Waldo is, without looking, without doing anything, how would you go, how do you know? You can't prove that to me. I could prove it to you by pointing out where Waldo was on the page, but then that gives up the answer. And we don't want to give up the answer. So what zero knowledge proofs does is allow us to have a math conversation where at the end of that conversation, you don't find out anything about where Waldo is on the page, but you know for a fact that I know where the answer to that question, that I am correct in telling the truth. And now extend that more generally to financial transactions or to anything in finance, right? If I could prove to you without opening up the kimono that I have the $50,000 I need to buy this car, then why are you going to the dealership or the bank and giving them a credit check, putting down collateral, giving them your social security number and all this stuff or giving them even like 3 years of bank statements? You know what I mean? When all you would have to do is have a zero knowledge proof conversation and prove that, I do have this money in the bank, or I do have this, this asset, this collateral, ready to go. And so we just took that a step further. And by being able to prove that, hey, there's an asset secured on chain, and that, hey, this unknown person, it does own it and it is anonymous, but it is verified, then I can hand off that proof between 2, 3, 4 people and be able to anonymously transfer things offline. And that was the whole idea behind Zera, is being able to lock these assets anonymously in a dark pool, shielded pool, whatever kind of terminology you want to come up with, a mixer, all these really cool different pieces of tech that teams like Elusive, Tornado Cash, and other privacy companies have built for us, and really just leverage that to bring tech and bring crypto back to what it was supposed to be, right? The first Bitcoin that was really ever spent was bought like 15,000 Bitcoin on 2 pizzas, right? Yeah. It was meant to buy guns, butter, and beer. And we want to bring that kind of ethos back to crypto, not something that was, controlled by the hedge funds and controlled by big media. We want everybody and their mom to be able to anonymously and safely spend money as if it's cash, and crypto as if it's cash.
That's super interesting. I think that explanation nailed it on the head. And now when you stand back and look at the word ZKP, or zero knowledge proofs, it literally describes it in the name, right? Zero knowledge, but verifiable proof that I have something.
You gain zero knowledge about the topic, the product, but the answer is truthful.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. So you kind of started getting into Zera, and the reason you built this, I think that's a really good prerequisite there. Maybe tell us why you started building Zera based on the knowledge we just learned, and why it's so important and what it is. It seems like maybe it's a few things too, right?
Yeah, Zera really operates, the company itself operates as kind of a privacy playground for developers, is kind of how I phrase it, or a think lab. The core product, this Zera Cash, this offline cash alternative that we're building, is really kind of the logical conclusion of my PhD thesis. Our project has been amazing, community driven. Every single one of our community members is amazing, because I kid you not, this started as working on my PhD thesis, working on it in my free time, thinking the same way that most people in the industry were thinking, right? That like, oh, privacy is something you got to build in your basement and surprise release it. Otherwise, government's going to come after you. People are going to come after you. You have to release it anonymously. And so like, I thought these were just going to be research papers that I was going to publish in journals over the next few years. And while I was working on it, literally while I was working on one of the math proofs for making the zero knowledge actually work offline without a double spend, I was sitting there trying to solve this problem, and I was listening to a hacker podcast called Darknet Diaries, and they were talking about Pump Fund, and I had my MetaMask wallet, and so I bridged $50 over from my MetaMask wallet that everyone knew who I was. That was a doxed wallet, all that stuff, and I threw $50 on Pump Fund, and the community picked up, hold on, that's that software engineer from MetaMask. What's he doing on Solana? What are you working on? And so I tweeted some drafts of my thesis, and everyone went, you have to do this. You just have to. And we hit the bonding curve in less than 4 hours. And then it started growing to the point where we hit $5, $10, $20 million in market cap. And I'm like, okay, I guess I have to quit my day job in this business. And the community has been behind me 200%. From that point. Like, one of the biggest points I can point out, just on the phone call before this, talking to Migrate.fun and the people who helped us do our migration, they said that they didn't think anyone by their best models would get over 80% participation in the migration. We got 95% participation. Wow. We got so much participation in my migration. I'm actually a little butthurt because that means we don't get as much in return coins in terms of like what our on-chain war chest will be to pull from. But no, it's amazing. And so we're going to make plenty from the fees, and our community has just blown every expectation of what the project could be out of the water, and being able to push for not just these products, but being able to push for a company where like every time we encounter a problem, right? Like if you're a company and you have an on-chain war chest, that's now public information. Well, how do we shield that if you're Charles Schwab or JP Morgan, right? Like I come from the traditional tech and business background where like once you've made those money from fees or from selling your iPhone, you know, you don't go out and publish your books. You know, you get to make strategic decisions on how to invest that money. You know, it's very cool and it's community funded, but if you're a big bank, you're not going to open up your books and put it free for everybody on blockchain. So building shielded pools, extending the technologies, and just every time we run into an issue, I'm able to add it to this big backlog that we have. We literally have a whole section in Notion called future R&D plans of just every time we run into a problem that we think privacy can solve, it goes in there as another thing we can build later on and another thing we can work with. But right now, especially because of my history and my exposure to MetaMask and like good user development, our core product is the wallet, is the offline cash focus. So that as we build out this wallet, I want it to be seamless. I want you to hand it over to your grandma and she think it's her digital banking app and not even realize she's on crypto. Because those abstractions and those levels of good UI and UX design exist. And it's a matter of us pushing for them as industry standard, not just, oh, like MetaMask has done an amazing job. I will never say anything bad about the team because I love them and the tech that they built, but it's still a browser extension. MetaMask is as good of an experience as you could ever possibly get, but it's a browser extension and it will never be better than a browser extension. And that's where we want to come in and go, hey, we can still hook into these browser extensions in other contexts, directly on your desktop, directly on your mobile phone, and we can make that experience better without ever even screwing with your private keys or anything else. We can sign in just like you sign in with your wallet on any regular page. You'll be able to sign into our dashboard, get a much better user experience, get a much better trading experience than anywhere else in the ecosystem, and be able to, in the early demos, take advantage of those offline transactions by submitting what you want for those offline notes, being able to turn them into QR codes or even file downloads if you're a crazy person who wants to like stick it on a USB and hand it to somebody. You know, and so that will be our really early version and our early demos. And then we're moving in with, there's a company that was bought by Stripe called Privy, and they have been really amazing SDK and exposure to work with. And they have a whole platform for us to get approved by Coinbase, Binance, MoonPay, so that we can directly onboard them directly into the app. So grandma can put in her credit card and not even realize that she's just bought crypto to do this anonymous exchange. The UI just abstracts that all away. And it's just a one click as if she was using Venmo or Zelle.
Wow, this is what we used to dream of, you know, using the tech to kind of just abstract away the blockchain and just make things so easy for the user. I mean, how long in totality would you say you've been working on all of this so far?
This as Zera as a concept, 6 months. As like what I've wanted to do as a privacy nerd, my whole career. Like I came out of high school like a hacker. Like I got in trouble because I wrote a virus that ended up not on the school computers, but on the school resource officer's cell phone. You know, and like so like I've always been this crazy hacker. You know, I have a Linux tattoo. You know, I've always been
commitment.
A crazy hacker. Yeah, I've always been a privacy focused nut job. I even used to run a Monero node back in the day. You know, and so like I love privacy. I think it's deeply important. And then as I just became more mature, and this is where my crazy politics will come out, but as I became more mature and got involved in the industry and saw how it was like very tech bro focused, I realized that anonymity, being anonymous online while still being a good dev, putting out good code, meant that I could still make money as an openly gay engineer, or the women in the field or trans people in the field could come out, put out good code, get paid the same as their peers, and interact with the space without being judged. And I thought like privacy is the key to that. And we need to maintain that respect that we have for every other person in this space, even if they're just a random person on Twitter who tweets about something. you don't measure them on their profile. You measure them on the shit that
Their
comes out of
merit.
their mouth, the shit that they, you know what I mean?
This was sort of
And whether or not
this is sort of Satoshi's vision, right? Essentially.
exactly.
That's beautiful. I guess I want to kind of summarize what you just covered because you covered a lot. So, firstly, you decided to launch kind of on a whim. People said, "We love this idea, Dax. Like, just launch it." You launch a token. You originally launched as money. Maybe why did you decide, obviously, to change from M0 and 3Y to 0 now? Obviously, I like the name much better. Change is smart, but maybe some context.
Like I said, so going back to the initial launch is when I did that bridge from my original wallet for $50, it was in January. It was throwaway. It was not meant to be even attached to this. I didn't realize people wanted to do this. And so it was a pure meme token. And I was naming it after the box or the briefcase of Monopoly money that Luigi and Mangione had left in the park after what he allegedly did. And so that was the whole thing. And there was a song out by Moonwalker called Monopoly Money as well at the same time that kind of inspired it. And I'm like, great, I got a soundtrack and I got a meme. And it has, social depth to it. And that's what I threw out there. And my thesis kind of got attached to it in that, like, you have to do it. You just have to do your thesis. You have to turn it into a real product. We want to use this from the community. And so that's what I did. And so turning it from, a meme which celebrates, Luigi Mangione to something official, something corporate, something faceable, investable, and meaningful was a huge thing. And that's what I got feedback constantly on is you need a migration, you need to change. There's 50 different people who want to come on board and want to try it, and they heard the idea, they love it. But these Coles, these KOLs, all these people want to get on board, but like it's too much of a meme name. You got to change it. And so I didn't come up with a name. The community did. The whale chat and a few other chats came together, and I'm like, I don't have an opinion on this. I have an opinion about engineering. I have an opinion about science. Whatever you guys want to call it, we'll do it. And I really loved Zera, and a new era for zero knowledge was the tagline that they came up with. And so we took it, we ran with it, and we love it. I love it. It's become a really amazing thing. I might even get the Zera tattoo, right underneath.
There we go. You might as well, dude, at this point. If you have that much, love for Linux, you got to have the same amount for Zero. So I say you go and do it. What's your experience been with Solana coming from something like MetaMask, which is, an Ethereum based wallet?
Oh, it's amazing. I think I can share this now, but 3 out of 5 engineers that I work directly with at MetaMask are now entirely on Solana or directly work as engineers of the Solana Foundation. So it is not just me. It is a huge component of the industry. I think a lot of us engineers, especially the senior and principal people, smart people even smarter than me, really jumped on Ethereum early, right? Because it was one of the only ones out there that had the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine. It had the ability to write and run contract code on-chain, decentralized, trustless, all the things we care about, right? But, and no disrespect to Vitalik, he's nice. I bumped into him once in the many years I've been around. And notice, but so Ethereum is the least worst. It's the best implementation of probably the worst way to do it. It's the absolute best implementation of the worst way to do it. And so a lot of us, because it was the only option, really jumped on it. And I never even liked Solidity from the start. I did Solidity auditing contracts. I talked about ERC 720 when it came out. I was around for all of that. And I just never loved the way the code was written or it was run or how the compile times worked. And there were a lot of stopgaps. There was a Zinc project that is still being worked on to change the underlying programming language, right? Yule was the other, Yule, whatever it was, is the alternative to Solidity. And so we didn't really like it, and Rust had become more prevalent and more prominent. And I was using Rust, to write APIs and backends in my day-to-day job. In fact, when I was working at the AI company, it was a leap year, a leap second, and February 29th, so a leap day. And all of the functions that run the AI servers that collect all the data from users run on a clock. And so the entire system crashed because it was leap second, leap day, leap year. And so we're like, crap, how do we do this? And I found that I could write 5 lines of code in Rust, but export it to the JavaScript that we needed. And I could change 1 line so that instead of pointing to all the JavaScript time date functions that were super complicated, I could point it to my 1 10 function file, 5 function file, and fix everything forever. And when that worked like that for me with Rust, that's when it clicked. And I was like, okay, Rust has some serious shit behind it. What is going on? And I fell in love with writing Rust, learning Rust, building some hacking tools in Rust. I have a really cool, that NPM attack that came out a few months ago or a few weeks ago. I don't know if you remember it.
With
there was
Ledger?
a supply chain attack. No, was it Ledger? No, it was the NPM one where it was inside the websites.
Not sure if I'm familiar. Maybe give us a brief summary.
There was one. It was a few weeks ago. It was a big deal. It affected in-browser wallets.
I remember.
It was like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
2 weeks before that, I'd actually written that exact supply chain attack and posted it as like a case study. And so, like, I have always loved Rust. I thought it was a really good platform, and getting to learn it more was super exciting. And then to learn, Solana was built on Rust as a core technology that I already believed in was super powerful. And then you looked at all the advantages that Solana has, which is decentralized identity, all the things that Eric and I talked about when we go live, which is like technical things, DID, sovereignty, digital asset ownership. All that stuff is governed a lot by multiple contracts, which require fees, right, to go between each other, which means that the fact that Solana has such cheap fees that the crazy, really complicated, sounds good. The crazy complicated things that we want to do, like zero knowledge proofs, are way cheaper to do. And we even said that, Ethereum feels like when you want to do the powerful things, their experiences only for the rich people. And we don't want that. We want time and money for everybody to be able to take part in this crypto, because that's what Eric and I really believe in. And Eric was my manager at MetaMask, and he has been an amazing supporter, team member, and friend, and someone to bounce off of. If we have the cash capital, I would love to hire him. I know he's on the job search right now, but he's got a family to support, so hiring him would be a top priority. In terms of team members, we have I'm making the joke, in terms of full-time permanent team members, it's really me, Rico, and I'm hoping to bring on a woman whose name I cannot disclose because she hasn't left yet, but from Gemini. And she's amazing. So I guess I make the joke that we're all DEI hires, because Rico and I are both gay, and Shauna will be our first woman.
Dude, there you go. Definitely.
We like to make that joke. We don't take ourselves super seriously, except for the science. The science and tech is where we thrive the most. But it's amazing. I really love working with Rico. We've worked together in the past on contracts, and he shares a lot of my close engineering opinions. So there's not a lot of arguments about going left or going right on this. We set the priority of this feature needs to get done, and we have an amazing designer who's been connected from some of our Coles and our founders for us, and we found an amazing designer who helped us design this website, who we are able to just really clearly lay out what we need from them, and they're really able to deliver what we need. And the cool thing is because I've been around so long, even the tech we picked for the designers and what I asked the designers to build inside of makes it that much easier and that much faster for us to build out these components, right? So huge shout out to Shadcn, SHADCN. He is an amazing designer, works at Vercel now, but he came out with an entire design system that's entirely downloadable, customizable, and we use that as the base for everything, so that we only have to write a button or a function once, and then we can reuse it everywhere. And that's the beauty of it, is like, once we get this design down, this wallet interface down, we don't have to rebuild it for the mobile app. We don't have to rebuild it for the desktop app. We can just change the code that needs to run on those devices to that correct code. But we can use all these same UI abstractions and build this unified economy and this unified design language, where once you learn how to use Zera in a website, you'll already know how to use Zera on your mobile phone. You'll already know how to use Zera, on your desktop. And that's
Tell
the
me,
beauty
tell
of
me
it.
about this Zira ecosystem. I got this pulled up on the screen, the new era of digital cash. You give a couple different examples here of what you guys build. Maybe to like kind of put a bow tie on top of the Zira conversation, what it is. Just tell us about the ecosystem, the different things you guys are focused on covering.
Yeah. It's definitely the offline transaction portion. The ecosystem will cover apps that enable the core protocol, which is just like how Ethereum or Solana is a protocol, but you've got Phantom, you've got Backpack, you've got Squads for multi-sig. Each one of these apps does a different thing on the underlying ecosystem or the underlying chain, right? We just want to enable offline transactions. That's, if you want to think about what we do, it's offline transactions, and building out products to service that is what the ecosystem is going to be about. So to start, like I said, building a better user experience for the wallet is step one. Because if you can't use your wallet easily, clearly, obviously, how are we going to guide you through or make sure you're comfortable with, as an end user, turning your cash into an offline note that, just like your wallet, if you lose it, or just like a private key, if you lose it, it's gone. So we need to build user trust first in building quality products that have meaningful interactions before you're ever going to trust us with putting $1,000 that you could easily lose on a USB somewhere. You know what I mean?
Does this go beyond crypto,
so we want-
right? Because this seems like innovation that's not only positive for crypto, but positive for the broader financial world. Maybe tell us about your thoughts there.
Yeah. So the cool thing about my thesis and the underlying math, at least, is it is blockchain agnostic. Agnostic meaning it doesn't care about where it runs. If you can write code on something called Turing completeness, it is a measure in computer science of how complex a computing system is. If a computing system is Turing complete, it can run pretty much any program. Even if that's cups and water, you can set up cups and water in such a way that it is Turing complete, but that'll take forever to run. So that being said, anything that is Turing complete can run our zero knowledge proofs, which means Ethereum can do it. Layer 2 Bitcoin can do it. I don't know if Zcash supports it yet, but any layer 2 scaling solution will support it. But also, Venmo can support it. MasterCard, Visa, American Express can support it. There's nothing stopping your local bank down the street from supporting the same protocol. And in the long run, over the 5, 10, 7 years, we have a 7-year plan of working with it's called a working group. The people who come up with like the tap to pay standards and the actual like frequency standards that occur when you hold your phone near a payment processor to get that thing to work. We want to work hand in hand with them to bring this technology directly to tap and pay, so that even when you're not using crypto, privacy by default is the obvious answer.
And it seems like you're making chill, go ahead.
And just one thing I wanted to actually kind of talk a little bit about. We see you're going you're doing a lot of work on the regulatory front. So before I even get to that, Dom, did you want to stay on this for a second?
That was my next question. Clearly, he's making a push for this. He was in Texas doing all that stuff. Maybe I think our questions are probably the same.
Yeah, just give us a rundown of, this is reaching into the real world. Obviously, there's some regulatory hurdles or maybe some things that need clarified. So just kind of walk us through a little bit of the work that you're doing in Texas and how that'll benefit not only Zera, but privacy protocols everywhere.
Yeah. So there's kind of two components to that. It's both the regulatory compliance and understanding where we fall as a classification, which is really hard because we don't technically exist yet, right? We're not a bank that has pre-existing conditions and like you can point at it and go, oh, that's a bank. I know what a bank is. Therefore, you fall under banking secrecy law and compliance and know your customer law and AML law and all these things that I'm throwing out. So we don't fit that. So we have to figure out, what do we exist as? And that takes a lot of money and a lot of lawyers. That's the first one. 2, if we exist as something new, are there laws that are in place that might apply to us, laws that need to be created that apply to us, or systems in place to do with that? And then 3, in addition to that, what have other people done? And for our specific space in Texas, especially with the new stock exchange and looking at partnerships, we have some very exciting partnerships we're looking forward to, specifically within the Texas government and the Texas Stock Exchange specifically. We hope to be the transmitting layer for one or two Texas government-backed currencies, cryptocurrencies. And there are some really exciting projects who are under NDA who are working with the stock exchange to actually become just like how the US dollar is the dollar of the United States. It wasn't like that until about 1910 with the creation of the Federal Reserve. Before that, almost every state issued its own currency in its own way. And so returning to that, at least in the digital age, is something that we talked about a lot at TexCap. That is, if you just scroll back a little bit, that is actually a senator, and that is a representative. Those people were all members of the Texas government who are on stage talking about the benefits that they want to bring to Texas, which is another reason why we're building here, is we won't be taxed. They want to introduce an amendment to the Texas Constitution that will not tax securities and by extension will not tax cryptocurrency. And so they made that announcement at the conference, and staying ahead of and in line with both the lawyers that were at this conference and these policymakers like him himself to understand where they want to go with the currency is always talk to them and help influence them into the way we want to think that privacy is a right, that privacy is something we need to protect. And that those are the things that we're working towards is super important. So it's both sides of the coin. Is I need to work with lawyers, attorneys, lawmakers to find out where do we exist in this space as someone who needs to be compliant with law in order to operate a business, as well as if we don't exist yet, or you don't have an opinion on us yet, how do we influence their policy and their decision making in the best way to help us succeed, to help us make sure that privacy remains a core right for everybody.
How have those conversations been going?
Oh, amazing. We have cross-aisle support from Democrats and Republicans on our first set of legislation that I put out, the Texas Privacy First Act, which I have published. I published a few weeks ago, and I met with lawmakers in Austin, as well as lawyers, members of the legislature this past week in Dallas. And I've had nothing but positive feedback on that. In fact, I have a meeting later with the staff for one of the Democratic heads of finance and investments for the Texas, for the state of Texas. They run the legislative commission on passing and writing bills and governing investments, retirements, and savings throughout all of Texas. And so we're going to continue to see maybe Zara can support, backing people's retirement accounts or investment accounts, stuff like that, and allowing all these companies which were on stage, like T. Rowe Price, JP Morgan, and these people who are doing like wrapped ETFs and systems like that, to make sure that they can keep all their assets private and maintain the privacy of their clients as well. So we want to be able to serve everybody. And if we can get in on that institutional level of working with like Charles Schwab or Bank of America and being able to privately protect all of their customers' data on chain, then we'll have a really strong argument and a lot of institutional investment in making sure that we can bring offline cash to everybody.
Love it. One thing you mentioned earlier that I want to kind of touch on is when you talk about migration, you said you had insane participation. I remember seeing Migrate.fund saying in their case studies, like 85% was the high end of what you could get. And so it's really cool to see that you said you got 95%, but that only left you with 5% of liquidity going back to the treasury. That being said, how are you guys making money at the moment? It seems like you're maybe pre-revenue right now. And did you like look into fee structures to where trading fees would generate you some sort of return, or is that what you did with the whole migration thing? Touch on that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Regardless of what the community may or may not think, this was entirely, and you'll hear this from me, as much as I value the community and I'm doing this to serve the community, I'll always make business decisions from an engineering or business perspective. And so I took a look at it. I took a look at fees, what we were doing historically and what we were missing out on through the launch platform, which no shame to launch platforms. I think they're wonderful. Pump Fund, Bonk, they're doing really cool things, but I do think they're absolutely missing the mark on creator monetization. And that was one of our big problems. And so I looked down, I took a look at it, and I decided for me and at least 3 other people, what do our historical fees look like without scaling, and what do our fees look like with scaling? And with that, I settled on 1%, a 1% fee on the pool would be ideal for, being able to live comfortably and hire 2 or 3 other engineers to make sure that we can push this through to completion, regardless of what the market does, up, down, left, or right. As long as we have minimal movement and minimal trading volume, we'll be able to continue and weather pretty much any storm. And then, so that's what we've moved to is with Migrate.fund. We love working with them. Like I said, just talked with Jake. We're moving from Migrate.fund. They put us on Raydium because that's all they had available to start. And so once this lockout period ends, we are working directly with Meteora to put the whole pool on Meteora, so we collect those Solana fees directly and take that full 1% chunk. And yeah, that should be able to fund us, or at least fund me, and fund the fight for privacy for a long time to come.
Love to hear that switch. Meteora is a big supporter of the show. Shout out Meteora. That being said, so you're doing 1% in, 1% out then. Is there any transaction fees or transfer fees?
No, we're not doing a token 2022 standard. That's the cool thing about my math is I did not move this to a token 2022. This is a conventional SPL token.
Okay. Got you. And can you explain what that means?
It's been interesting. There were some issues with the token 2022 standard, and so not a lot of people have moved to it. And by not a lot of people moving to it, nobody's bothered to fix the issues with it. And so it hasn't been a popular answer. The token 2022 standard is a set of extensions and a newer version of the classic Solana token system that we've had for a while, but it enables things like overall fee transfers on individual transactions, being able to use, they actually do have a semi-zero knowledge proof system set up so that account balances are shielded. Not sender or recipient, you'll still see sender and recipient on the chain, but you won't actually see the balance amounts or the transaction amounts. And so that was kind of their first step into privacy, which is, again, another reason why I picked Solana. If the underlying chain is already trying to implement what I want to build, then that's a really good signal for working with, working with the Solana Foundation and with the underlying people who are already in the space, right? Because Solana Foundation is huge. They already have both industry and legislative contacts. They know how to jump through the hoops that we need to jump through as a protocol and as a company.
Love it. And as for revenue, are you guys pre-revenue right now? Okay,
yes.
Nice. How do you tie token growth to what you're building? Is there any value drive to the token at the moment, or are people speculating right now on future value that you guys are going to be able to drive to the token?
It's pretty speculative right now. I would say outside of the concrete things we've been able to do with the funds and, like my bag that I partially liquidate just to pay for things like going to the conferences, there's been objective value to, what we've been doing, flying around, getting our name out there, name brand recognition, as well as the feedback, some of the open source that I put out, and just small tools like a base 58 encoder. There should be a small VPN somewhere, but not just that, but the steps we've already taken to create a legislative framework and to build a business, do all the business filings, hire attorneys, especially to start answering and hammering out the legislative questions that, if we built this, if we didn't answer these questions first and we built this, we might have ended up jail. And so we want to make sure as we build this, we do it correctly, we do it safely, we do it ethically and fairly for everybody, making sure we're in compliance with, my moral standards of giving everyone privacy, as well as the highest standards of compliance and privacy that we possibly can. And so, I would say you're right, the main chunk of this is definitely speculation driven until we get the first few demos out, because with the demos, the way we've built the tokenomics around this is the classic deflationary, everybody gets supply and demand thing, which is, you burn a little bit of the token in order to use the protocol or use the ecosystem, and therefore supply of token goes down, so demand goes up, and so price goes up as well. And so that will be our main set of tokenomics or modifiers, and we'll even talk with lawyers to see if maybe in the short term or in the betas we collect fees in our own token rather than a burn mechanism just to grow that, that war chest. But again, like I said, I can't answer those questions until the lawyer answers those questions for me.
Gotcha.
So you're leaning towards the, hey, use our token to use our protocol, in which case naturally supply and demand should increase. Yeah.
And then it will be no longer speculative. It'll be very much more stable, locked to the token. You'll be able to do instantaneous, buy and burn right there in the contract, which is another thing I have to add to the to-do list. As I talk, I'm like writing down, okay, this is the other 5 things I have. Yeah.
Got it. That's awesome. And so really you're leaning on the because I see a lot of questions when demo in the chat. So I'm assuming like kind of you're leaning on the regulatory side of things as far as what you're working on with lawyers and things to kind of give you a timetable on that, and also kind of build out the top end of the funnel as far as who you can offer this to. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I can tell you right now, I cannot offer it to Iran, North Korea, or Iran, North Korea.
China.
There's one other. No, I can offer it in China, but there are some feature limitations. For example, if we're classified as a security, no Chinese national will ever be allowed to receive an airdrop.
Okay.
That kind of a thing. Well, they can, but they then have to register with the U.S. government. They're going to get one, essentially. And that defeats the whole purpose of privacy. So,
got you. Yeah, no, makes sense.
Yeah.
What about, unless you had to finish that thought there, you can go ahead.
No, I was trying to think.
Oh,
of more
you're good.
thoughts,
You're good.
so I
Don't
sound
worry.
smart.
Just, relax. Nothing too crazy here. But what does competition look like? Would you say you're competing with someone like Ledger or Trezor, or who's your competition?
I don't really see us that way with competition. I think we're working in conjunction with a lot of things, and they're not the places you would normally think of. I think of Elusive, which is now pivoted to Axum or Arkham. They had a shielded pool system that for our demo, I might just rip out their shielded pool system rather than a mixer and build off of that and put our zero knowledge proofs in part of their protocol, And so it's less about, competing and building on the shoulders of giants. I think there are other technologies that are existent in the space that maybe we're competing against, not because we realize we're competing, but because they have very poor form when it comes to building open source software. I know there's a couple projects out there that I think we could benefit from using their technology that we'd be happy to license or buy from them, but they're hell-bent on using the P word and patenting it and making it so that it's not accessible or usable for the whole industry. And I'm not okay with that. And so I think those are more, and we're more competing against attitudes than we are any specific company, because I think every company out there wants this kind of privacy solution, at least everyone that I've talked to. Even Quai. Quai gave me a bunch of extra Quai when I met them at the NABS conference this week. They're super nice. I love their engineering team. Gave me a genius idea for the first demo, right? Instead of doing just QR codes and downloadable files, I can encrypt the offline notes directly into like your keychain for your passkey. So if you have like a YubiKey or one of those things, like putting it in there, and he showed me how to do that process. And like, so even competitors like Quai has their own privacy like blockchain that they're trying to do, and they're building out, and it's very, very, very cool. And I love their tech. There's literally nothing stopping any other engineer that I've met from sitting down and helping me solve a problem. So I don't think I'm in a race to build this against anyone, especially when it comes to like my zero knowledge proof, my specific approach. I don't feel that I'm in a race or in a competition against anyone specific. And with that comes the fact that, like I said, I can sit down with pretty much any engineering team and give feedback on their product, and they can give me good ideas or help me solve problems on my end. Yeah.
And
you guys
speaking of your conversation, kind of just your conversations with Trezor, you mentioned before this that you were just on a meeting with them. So what are those conversations? I know there's things you can't disclose, but what are those conversations looking like exactly?
Yeah. So the Trezor one's a little bit of a misnomer. It's a little different. It was more on our corporate side of, we want to use Trezor products to protect our assets. I think all of our major whales and most of the people on the council are already using Trezor. So it was more corporate solutionism than it was, hey, product partnership. It was, hey, how do we get this to run and protect our things? But there are other hardware companies that we've talked to specifically to do that cold wallet integration. But I do think you're kind of right. Like Trezor might be the best platform to start with, especially because even their hardware is open source. Like before the meeting, I literally was reading through on GitHub. They have a PDF of their circuit design. Like you can read through everything with Trezor, which is very, very cool. Though their hardware may not support what we need to with like generating the QR code in terms of power on that device, which is why when it comes to like the offline cache, I thought it'd be really cool to do our own version of a cold wallet that still allows you to transfer without the internet, right? There's no internet on a cold wallet, but you can still send Zera and any wrapped asset that you want between cold wallets. And so building out that cold wallet with a company called Milk5, or the Milk5 duo from is it Jupiter Labs, who is a Chinese or Japanese manufacturer. They're super nice. But with them, we've been working on, I ordered another 10, 20 of them, which are in shipping right now, to build out at least like a firmware level wallet that will run the zero knowledge proofs offline, and they have tech to build from. Plus, unlike Trezor, which requires you to go out and actually manufacture, even though they give you the plans, right, to manufacture a Trezor, you still have to go out and get someone to make that chipset for you. The cool thing about the Milk5 and Jupiter and the whole team is that you're able to buy this as if it's a Raspberry Pi. You're able to go off the shelf to a Best Buy or an electronics store and buy these parts yourself, to build it yourself at home, build it with your kids, you know what I mean, and make it into a weekend project. And that's where I want to end up with our open source community and how we support them.
Very nice.
So really, it's not that you have so much competition. It's actually more, partnership potential here. How do you work on? You're still working on, I guess, fleshing out the project here and the product itself. But when it does come to distribution, it comes time to implement this SDK and get your technology in the right people's hands. How do you plan on going about that distribution? Because you're already having those conversations clearly.
Yeah, so like I said, there's a difference between what you're asking for, distribution of the technology, and offering a product or service. So product or service falls under all the legislative stuff we're doing, right? All the hard stuff like making a button that makes this all happen seamlessly is a product and is a service, right? So we have to follow US law, we have to follow regulatory agencies, all that stuff, which is a pain, but we want to get there so that everyone has the right to do that. But the cool thing is about distribution is that falls under First Amendment protection and open source software, which means when we get to a point where we have this product and service up and running and we're confident in it, I am going to open source the tech, because by that point, we'll have already been ahead. We will be operating for a while. We'll have the go-to service. And in my opinion, I think we'll have done it the best way it can be done. And at that point, it's time to give away the sauce and show everybody how it's done, so that people in China, people in North Korea can fight their own government, can fight those kinds of forms of oppression and implement it themselves. So we won't be able to offer our product and service in that country, but we will give them, their developers, the tools they need to implement it on their own sites. Just like how the Solana Foundation releases the Solana SDK. So if you want to put it in, sign in with your wallet, the software that you're actually using to do that comes from the Solana Foundation. Every developer just imports it, puts it in the top corner of their page or wherever else they do it, plugs in the state so that they can manage the wallet, connect and disconnect, and do whatever custom logic they want with the contract and with that website, right? We want to do a similar thing where we're not offering a service, but we are offering the software for free, for licensing. And so that anyone in that open source ecosystem can contribute, make it better. And we can, again, like I said, the goal is to make privacy the default for the whole ecosystem.
Would you say that crypto is a fast-paced industry? It moves quickly. Would you say that this legislation and traditional, just the traditional ventures are much slower moving than crypto? And how has that affected, I guess, the rate that you're trying to go at, because you have to work so closely with this legislation?
Okay, so a great answer to this is that this has been solved. In that tech has always moved way effing faster than legislation ever will.
Yeah.
For example, the next legislative session, meaning the next time, without a special session, the next time Texas will be able to pass a law will be 2027, which is insane, right? 2 years to release a new product. What? Yeah.
What?
But this has been solved in that tech companies have been working with legislators for years and years now. So we can already use the tools of the trade. Like the tools and the behaviors for this have already been taught. And it's what I learned at the tech companies, right? And that's why, even though it's 2025, we don't have another legislative session until 2027, that I'm already meeting with legislators. I'm getting the first seeds of what we need in place, because it is a slow process. And just like building any product, I know that crypto moves fast and it feels fast, but I wouldn't say it's about the same pace, or maybe a little faster than conventional tech, in that when we're talking about big tech or big conventional tech, not old slow banking technology, okay, those are 500-pound ships that take 6 months to steer left or right. And there's nightmare. There's a reason why I don't work for a bank anymore. Nightmare fuel. Is that we can still release and iterate on products and services that we want rather quickly, but they still take time to develop and push out. So we're not as desynchronized with the legislative session, nor is it it's so out of whack that they're incompatible. We build a product in the other. When something is mathematically impossible, we go back to the legislators to try and figure a way around it. When the legislators need a form of compliance, they give us a nice long timeline to do that, so that over multiple software releases, we can fall and come into compliance. So I think it's a really good give and take. And while I would like sometimes the democratic process to move faster, it's slow for a reason. And I think when it comes to legislation that we talk about and iterate on properly with proper collaboration, we get it right more often than we get it wrong.
We want to be respectful of your time here, so we're going to try to keep it pretty quick from this point forward, guys. If you have questions in the chat, I would say now's your time to ask them. We're going to try to cover some of those real quickly. But I guess generally, as we wait for some of those questions, Dax, what would you say the future holds for Zero? What are you most excited about, and what does a world with this sort of privacy technology look like?
Yeah, sorry, I'm about to die. I'm walking back in to plug in my laptop. But
oh, geez, sorry, bro. We'll let you go soon.
No. It's all good. I planned for this to take up most of the afternoon, but we're good. The question was like, what do I see the future as?
Yeah, I guess it would be like roadmap for Zero. Maybe just what do you see coming up in the next initial 6 months, and just what does the future with privacy, like with this technology, look like?
So, at least for the roadmap and for this stuff, we're getting out the better wallet interface, our wallet, if you call it demo interface, that, like I said, we want to improve the existing experience and onboard people and make them confident in our technology first. And so that's coming out first, and definitely within the next 6 months will be the offline cash demo. You will be able to take some form of note, whether that's a QR code, depending on the size of the proof that we end up with, because they can be pretty big and hefty, from everything from a QR code to a to a downloadable file, or even something that gets put into your passkey or your offline Trezor wallet. That is all something we want to push out in the next 6 months. Then in terms of the industry, it's going to be a big fight for us in terms of making sure that privacy is the default. I think there are tons of different ways that this can go, and different ways that privacy can be advocated for. And I don't have any specific prediction other than the fact that it'll be different than what we think it will be. But as long as we can fight to make sure privacy is the default, not just open, give it all away, the government can track everything you do. As long as we continue to fight that, I don't think there's necessarily any wrong way for this privacy argument to go, unless it's to give up all control to the government.
Okay, I love it. One question real quick we got from Tony Baloney. Question is, will using Zero for privacy transactions come with a discount on transaction fees? So back to that tokenomics we were talking about earlier. Will using Zero for privacy transactions come with a discount on transaction fees?
I haven't really thought about that, but there's absolutely the fee payer system, which exists, which allows that kind of movement of who's paying the fee. And you can move that off, not even just off network, but you can move that to different sets of parties within the network. I think that would be a very cool thing to do. And just like I said, with that kind of feedback, that's now going in my notebook. Let's figure out how to do that. Let's see how that works out, because I think that's a genius idea. No, it didn't occur to me. I can't solve everything. Let's do that. If we do that, and then here we go again, lawyering. If we do that, it won't be for a while. But yeah, that's definitely something we can look into and work on. And I think that's a genius idea.
Okay, Dax, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I think like we're totally aligned with the future here of privacy and the rights people should have. And, so a lot of the different conversations we had today, really interested to keep tabs on you guys. We would love for you to have this first demo. When you're ready to break this demo live, come on MCG, do it live for the people, get some live feedback. I think that'd be awesome. But any closing thoughts here? Because I think that covers most of it.
Yeah. Just for everyone out there, like I said, zero knowledge proofs, I think, are a really powerful tool for us to confirm honesty, but that also means that we need to be honest and open in how we present ourselves and how we work on this tech. And my community has been really amazing in being respectful and kind to other communities and to your show. And your show has been amazing and kind and respectful to us as well. And so I wanted to just thank you for that, and just remind everyone that, everyone's a person. I'm doing my best. I'm not claiming to have solved world hunger or any of the hardest problems in math, that we can just all make reasonable and responsible decisions. For me, that's bringing this forward. And for you as a person, being reasonable and responsible in how you use your time, spending some time, effort, and energy supporting us.
Well, listen,
So thank
Dax, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the stream. I think he's delayed just a bit. Let me
A little
see.
laggy.
There we go.
It's all good.
There we go.
Wi-Fi,
I think
he moved inside.
there we go. I got you back. No, it's been an absolute pleasure here having you back on, having you on the stream. Would again love to have you back when you're coming out with these updates. We know that there's a ton that you're working on, both on the regulatory side, but then also on the tech side of things. So as things build out, we tend to have projects on stream, and then after like 6 months, they've built out something that kind of catapults them into another phase of their roadmap. So definitely would love to have you back. I mean, amazing community, amazing product, and just excited to see not only what you do for Zera, but just for privacy protocols and privacy in general. So awesome stream, man.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, Dax, man. Talk soon.
Have a good one.
Huge.
I think he was lagging towards the end there, but awesome conversation. Yeah, like, dude, I'm glad privacy is getting some shine here, because it's so important. Like Dax said at the start of this call, it was like, you have to go to the bank, and to show proof of funds, you have to show your address, your ID, your 3 years of history when it comes to how much you've been earning. There's so much that goes into it, and so on a broader level, it starts here in crypto. It starts with transactions, but on a broader level, how can we get privacy to where users' privacy is respected, and we can still get those same rights that we would get if we showed all of our personal details? So, really interesting conversation.
My biggest thing here is I've seen so many privacy protocols before, privacy protocols that have used ZKP and use the underlying technology that Zera is using. And many have had the same vision of, hey, look, we want to, ZKPs affect all the things that you just mentioned, Dom, how people apply for mortgages or car loans, or this technology can be implemented in such a way to make everyday life so much easier. And these projects before have taken advantage of that narrative to say that, hey, look, we can actually build something towards that end. But so far, Zera is the only project, Dax is the only founder that has been boots on the ground, literally with legislation, speaking to senators, collaborating with players and people that actually matter in making the changes, these types of changes happen. So, I think Zera is really on to something massive. I mean, when you think about the top end of the funnel and who can use this, he was talking about so many other things. It's just the end user base is actually pretty massive, and who can use this is actually pretty dope. And that deflationary mechanism that they have is really really interesting. This is a pretty interesting question here, Cuzzo. How are the conversations with the Solana Foundation going, and specifically, what's the progress on hackathon type community and industry awareness efforts? That's actually a really, really good question.
I think Dax could
Um,
probably go and kill some and crush some hackathons with this tech. So
so
maybe.
what we're gonna
Oh,
do
here.
is we're gonna have Dax explain and answer this question for you. Welcome back, homie.
We're doing the Coliseum hackathon right now. That's where I want to push out at least this really clunky, really ugly. That's why we want the wallet interface to come out first, right? I have Rico working on that. I have the designer working on that wallet interface, and we want to just release that really clunky, really ugly. It's going to be like an ugly ass TXT file that comes down magically out of the chain to give you that offline note, and you're going to print it out and hand it to someone else, and they're going to type it in, and we're going to see if you can redeem it offline. And like that's how clunky like the demo is going to be, but that's going to be kind of what we want the hackathon submission to be, for that absolute proof of concept that like if you can do that, right? If you could just type in a password and magically have $50 that was anonymously transferred from somebody else on chain, I think it's a pretty powerful demo of like, hey, our underlying tech works. And that's where we're trying to get to. And I did have something on test chain, but I crashed Solana after 5,000 transactions. So we're figuring it out. We're getting there. And like I said at the end of the earlier, is it's all about community, and it's all about being honest and open about what we're doing. And that I haven't claimed to solve world hunger. I'm just making responsible engineering decisions, and so part of that is getting it to work at scale. And so that's what we want to release, at least for this Coliseum hackathon, at the end of the month, or coming into next month, depending on how this window is, because it has taken a lot out of me. I've been doing 50, 60 different things every day, so we're getting there.
That was a banger clip. I'm glad you came back on to answer that question, because I think like that puts it really, really beautifully. It's like even the first demo, the first test project, it might be ugly and clunky, but if you can factually get someone to send you a physical note and you can type in a password and have it redeemed offline, that's powerful. And I think that idea is what people kind of need to grab. If they could only take away one thing from this whole conversation, it's like that idea right there is powerful. Awesome. Well, there we go. This time, Dax, we're done with you, buddy.
Appreciate you coming back on to answer that question, Dax. Chad, you're a legend.
Yeah, you're a beast, man. Thanks. Take it easy, brother. Okay.
Hope you guys love that, man. Dax is literally, I like this comment, Tony. Dax is teleporting. Yeah, he is. Yes, he is. He's actually out here doing work. Man, huge protocol. Shout out to Dax. I think he's building something pretty massive. So we're definitely going to keep eyes on it. And I would love to have him back, man. Like when these demos, when these hackathons, when these events start getting, rolling, would love to kind of cover these. So it's on you guys, man, the community. Let us know whenever you guys want us to cover something. Hop on stream, man. We're here Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. We're streaming. We're always willing to bring up and cover quality projects and great founders. So shout out to you guys for your support for Dax.
Dude, if we're gonna talk about community, man, Zira community goes crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, though Dax said himself, like he's leaned into you guys to give him ideas, give him help, give him guidance. Like he's one person. They got a team of 3, but they can't do everything. So even today, Tony Baloney, you gave the idea to, reduce or have no transaction fees for holding a certain amount of token. And Dax took that, right? He took that and he, gave his opinion on implementations. And I think it's really nice to see a founder that's willing to put his ego to the side, understand, hey, I'm not above everyone else. I'm not above everyone's ideas. If you got something cool, like we'll try to get that to work. I think that's really powerful. So I'm glad he kind of proved that to us towards the end there.
And the other thing too is like when we have these laws actually in place, like all these privacy laws that really pave the way for other privacy protocols. I mean, this would literally be because the community, if it wasn't for the community getting and rallying around him when he launched on Pump Fund, all of this wouldn't really be taking place, at least not right now. Right. So I really enjoyed that. Um, keep in mind, again, we're here Monday through Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow, however, we'll be starting at 9:30 a.m. and we're streaming all freaking day from 9:30 to at least 5 p.m. So if you guys enjoyed the Zero stream today, there's no doubt that you'll enjoy some of the streams that we have coming up for you guys later on this week. So today we had the amazing Dax on with Zara. Tomorrow we'll be covering Pay AI, another crazy community, and they have been just super active on the timeline. So excited to have them on. We're covering TGE talk with the one and only Soju, the GOAT from Meteora. And then we have a lot of cool other things coming up too. We're covering Startup Funds live raising tomorrow at 1 p.m. At 4 p.m. we have ICM.run spaces with Luca Nets, aka the mind behind Pudgy Penguins. You know what I mean? Huge stream happening tomorrow. And then if you can scroll down a little bit for me, Dom, we obviously have like the rest of the week. We have some pretty interesting stuff coming up. So NRN on Wednesday, we have Met. Shout out to Meteorite Collective, but we have a Meteorite Collective coming in on Thursday as well. So we're gonna have some spotlights there, and then Friday's stream is to be announced later this week. So I say all that to say, you just want to follow the account at Microcap Gem Show. Follow
Simple.
MCG to keep up with all things when it comes to this stream. And if there's ever a project that you want to get on our stream, man, smash the comments, bro. Go under that scheduled tweet. We always make sure to mention if you want to bring somebody up, you want us to highlight a founder, you love a project, make sure you highlight that in the comments. So, Zero community, if you ever want Dax to come back up, smash the comments, man. Smash the comments.
We're gonna do our best to get some clips from this out for you guys to circulate. I think that's what we found. The best way to get this information out is, lots of people are auditory and visual learners, right? So if you can get these clips in digestible, bite-sized forms, they really get circulating. So you guys can again prove your strength as a community here by getting those out and helping people understand, Dax's vision.
Yeah, we had a couple of really nice moments on stream. So we're gonna have some of our clippers clip all of that up. We're gonna be getting some really good clips out for the Zera community. And again, what we like to do, you guys think he will hire me?
I don't know, Tony. Keep up with those ideas.
He just might, man. You never know. But yeah, like that's what we're passionate about on the stream. There's a lot of like smart crack devs, just really great founders out there, and we love to help to kind of communicate what they're building in a way and in a format that's digestible and understandable to the audience. And I think that's what you'll see not only from our live streams, but you'll also see that in the way that we clip up our content and in the way that we post that on the MCG account. So again, you don't want to miss it. So you want to follow the MCG account. And when you do see those Zera clips come out, you want to circulate them, man. Let the people know.
Tony, man, we're happy to do longer. We stream, as you see tomorrow, we got to stream all day. We're happy to do longer. Dax said he can do longer. I mean, we can pull Dax back up. We just want to respect his time and make sure that you guys, get good, dense value. So, I mean, we could bring, you guys got more questions. We can bring Dax back up. He's just chilling right now. He said he set aside some time for the afternoon for this. So if you guys got more questions, we really covered a lot from our end, but here, I'll bring Dax back up. He was telling us some stuff in the private chat here. Maybe he can just speak on it to you guys, and we'll just go until we feel like hopping off, I guess. Dax, welcome back for the second time.
Teleporting again.
Part two. Yeah, it's the VPN. I switched VPN right in the when I cut out, I'm like, okay, maybe it's my VPN, so I switched it, and now I'm back. Big thing that was covered at the conferences that I was at, which was both TextCap and NABS, North American Blockchain Conference, and the first ever TextCap, which is the first ever Texas Capital Markets Conference.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so everyone from the NASDAQ to the Dow Jones to the New Texas Stock Exchange was there. I actually got to interview the lady who's the head of the New Texas Stock Exchange. There's like a 10-minute thing on there. But the thing that they kept hammering when I met with legislators, I even met with Governor Abbott on his way out. Amazing man. in terms of his story and how he's gotten places. But the thing that they reminded me is it's quarterly and it's midterms time. There will be bills if you're an American or even an EU citizen. There are bills and legislation out there that are affecting your privacy. You need to go and vote. I know it's cliche. I know it's silly. Write a letter to your representative, to your councilman if you're in the UK, to your local government if you're in the EU, and to your senator and your representative here in the United States, because they do take those letters seriously, and you're a constituent, and they should be voting and pushing forward the legislation you want, which I think is really important. I couldn't do it without the community, like I said before, and the community is going to be the thing that rallies behind a bill or rallies behind getting the vote done to make sure that our privacy stays intact. Which I think is super important.
Well, this is kind of fascinating because you're one of the few people that have like been on ground floor, boots on the ground in Texas, talking at some of these things, speaking with these people. What does the formation of capital and interest look like right now for crypto from Texas and legislation? And we've seen on our end, we've been documenting just like the massive push towards bringing markets on chain, capital markets on chain, just like this adoption of crypto. What, like firsthand, what does that look like?
Oh, then you guys should have been at NABS because there were 6 panels, Dow Jones, T. Rowe Price, Charles Schwab's, all up there. And they have their own ETFs. They have their own markets, and they are pushing conventional retirement fund managers into this. I think whatever cycles you think are going on, I think 26 is going to be more bullish than anyone could ever imagine by the amount of people onboarding in the institutional area. So, right, institutional would be banks, investment funds, capital managers, those people that aren't just the edge cases that, got into Bitcoin or crypto early. These people got on stage, like people who have been doing the traditional ETF or, even, buy US Treasury bonds people were at this conference and we're going, yeah, we're figuring out how to do that. The labor market and the different things are going to be a little difficult. I did stream the lunch talk with the head of the Dallas Federal Reserve, and she was really cool. She gave a market and like jobs outlook for the next year. And so the thing that is really supporting and like underwriting our economy right now is technology. AI, a lot of it, but also people don't realize is the Bitcoin and the blockchain technology is the other half of the reason why the economy is afloat, even with jobs in the market the way that it is. And so that being the case, like however bearish you think it is right now or bullish it is right now, this is almost like a bear season compared to where we could be when jobs recover, when the market recovers even more in like the underlying signals, right? Because the underlying signals like the job market, the trades market, like that is not doing okay. But our overall market capitalization, the stock exchange, it's doing gangbusters because of blockchain and because of AI. And when we can get people back to work and use privacy preserving technologies to do it, I think, these next 5-10 years are going to be huge. I think this is finally going to be the decade where grandma and grandpa finally get on Bitcoin or finally get on Ethereum or finally get on Solana.
So let me cook here because I have been over these last few years kind of experimenting with this idea of the roaring 20s, right? Like this being that era where there's just massive adoption because there's you have new market participants in terms of institutions and just bigger capital that just outsizes anything than what we have here currently.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. You have new users, and with the way kind of these new age projects such as Zera are kind of outshining these Dino coins is their tokenomics. You're kind of tying tokenomics more closely to the growth of your product or your platform or whatever it is that you're building. And so when you combine all of that with this kind of easing in regulation, and now you're saying that this is all saving our economy, so it would kind of behoove the U.S. to invest and put more resources to push this forward. It kind of begs the question of, or not begs the question, but to me, it kind of solidifies that thesis of this being the roaring 20s style of or the roaring 20s type of era for crypto, and not just anything and everything going up, but really the projects that are building something serious. What's your take on that from everything that you've seen at these meetings, at these conferences?
I think you're right, and I think it's even cooler if you could extend it to the reverse Roaring Twenties, because right, the 19s Roaring Twenties started out with a big economic boom and ended with the Great Depression, right, in World War II. So we started with a depression, we started with a global pandemic, and right, the Spanish influenza also occurred in the 1900s at that same time, right? So it's almost exactly the same, right? We start with a really slow, shitty pandemic. And as things ramp up and we get new technologies, it was cars back then. Now it's crypto. Now it's AI. I think your analogy is perfect. And I want, because I'm also in my 20s, my roaring 20s, to be a really fun time of building powerful, meaningful tools for everyone. But I think you're absolutely right. The institutional adoption that really drove home not the roaring 20s necessarily, but post World War II America with the rise of the cars that came out of the 20s was roads. And so to me, the infrastructure that's going to come out of this AI boom and this blockchain boom is going to be data centers. And we're already seeing that. Both the good and the bad of data centers, right? Noise pollution hurting people, while at the same time, this is the fastest data centers have ever gone up in history in America. It's so fast and trade secretive that the only way to track it has actually been to track EPA filings for backup generators, because you have to do an environmental impact study and file for them. So there's actually a website where you can go and you can see all the new developments planned for the next 8 months, 10 months, 2 years. And it is insane. Most of America will be covered in data centers. And with that already level of institutional buy-in, where we know that miners are coming out, and that was the other cool thing about NABS, was it was a hardware conference too. I actually just got this. It is a desktop miner that allows you to mine Bitcoin just on your desktop. And so they had programs and companies like this already out there at ACS, and we're seeing the investment at an institutional level. For anyone who out there has $1 million can go stand up a Bitcoin mine or a Solana farm, right now. Yeah, exactly. And so all these things will be available to even the lower tier of the institute. We talk about $1 million, like that's a lot of money to the average person, but a lot of people, especially in this space or investors, do have $1 million lying around, and they can turn around and turn that into meaningful infrastructure. I think we're going to see a huge boom in, just like we have data centers, we're going to see a huge boom in mining and validator centers, depending on, Solana validators or Bitcoin miners. And that exposure is really going to drive this innovation and the growth that we need to keep the chain scalable, decrease fees, and increase speed.
This is a fascinating conversation. You just connected, or compared, I should say, data centers to back in the 1920s, like roads for cars and stuff. If data centers are the roads for the future of cars in the 19th, if data centers are today's version of roads for cars, what are the cars of today, if that makes sense, right? Data centers are the roads, the underlying technology, infrastructure. What drives on top of that?
Well, what drives on top of that is literally the internet. So you do have the roads providers, right? So if we could send the analogy, Ford, GM, or Ford and GMC, right? Early car manufacturers. Those are our Amazons. Those are our Googles, right? But you also had Harley Davidson's a big name now, but Harley Davidson was a couple of, if I'm remembering it, motorcycles originally were a couple brothers in the garage, right? And that's what cryptocurrency and Bitcoin started out as. And so, we have Google, we have Ford, but Bitcoin is now Harley Davidson. And Tesla came out of the blue in today's modern ecosystem. Solana could be that next big thing. And so in terms of that analogy and who's driving on it, it's the literal internet, right? Anyone can drive on it. That is the beauty of it. That is the purpose of, not to get philosophical, but like that is the purpose of a government, right? Is to provide infrastructure. Anyone can ride a bike on a road, drive a car on a road, walk down a road. And the government's only responsibility is to collect enough taxes to make sure that road is maintained and goes useful places. And luckily with data centers and the way the internet works is we can already plug in a URL, an IP address, a DNS address, and making sure that high availability and that data availability is there for everybody is what these data centers will do. It'll make sure the data is there, that the blockchain is available at high and reasonable speeds for everyone to participate in, whether or not they want to train a massive AI to do something and suck up thousands of terabytes of data, or like our use case, right? I want a better wallet interface. Places like Phantom, MetaMask, Backpack, right? They only update their prices once every 5, maybe even 10 minutes, right? Even Coinbase doesn't update their live pricing scheme more than once a minute or maybe once every 5 minutes, right? High data availability, good data centers, partnering with a few partners that we talked to, or even onboarding, like I said, engineers from Gemini to build out a better and faster pricing API means that we can leverage these new data centers, which will make it cheaper for us to have data that refreshes every 30 seconds. So you will actually have better and faster pricing in your own wallet than when you're trading on Pump Fund.
This is a fascinating conversation because you're not saying this based off of some like obscure thesis or theory. It's not speculation. It's like you're watching it happen. We saw Nvidia put a huge $1 trillion, I forget the exact number, investment into data centers in the United States recently. And so it's like, it feels like everyone on the inside building the data centers, maybe even government, kind of realizes this, but a lot of people are missing that. And so it's interesting for you to put it in perspective like you just did.
And it's bigger than you will ever even, however fast you think it's happening, I guarantee you it's at least double that. Because I thought it was happening fast, and I went through some of the data. Like, I want to say there's going to be almost 1,000 new data centers over the next 18 months. 1,000.
Wow. Give us a scale of size, an idea on that. Because 1,000 arbitrarily is not a huge number.
One 40 megawatt site from Google, which would be built in Arizona, takes 1 million gallons of water per day. Takes 40 megawatts of electricity. That's the size of a mid to large nuclear reactor plant. That is enough data, though. Yeah, exactly. And that's a $1 billion or a few $100 billion site, right? But that site will make back all of its money in cost in less than a year.
What?
Typically, that's the price point of a data center. Data centers are that's why they're people are looking at to invest in them more than they are Bitcoin, right? Because your return is based on Bitcoin price, whereas data center, the value of data or data transmission is pretty flat. So they can always estimate what their money making amount will be, their profit amount will be, and so then they can estimate their cost based on that. And yeah, Google has decided that, spending that much money will mean that they make that much money back within a year or 18 months.
So Dax, your advice here, Dax, is if you have a couple $100 billion to throw around, go build a data center, and you'll have some good ROI.
Yeah, and even just build out your own mining thing. Because I have to find the book, but I actually got to meet this really cool guy. He runs and owns the oldest still existing Bitcoin mining pool.
Oh, what?
Yeah, at the conference. Super nice guy. He wrote a book. I think he signed it for me.
That's an OG.
Yeah, Brains with a double I.
Brains.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he wrote a guide. It's a short book, so anyone can do it. And so that's the other thing I was talking about with the conference is, and what I was kind of getting at with the car analogy is anyone can go out and build a car with crypto in their own garage, and they can drive it on the roads that are these data centers. And so even if you're not directly benefiting from the new data centers, if you're building a project, right? Because a project still needs a website, a project needs a domain, a project gets routed on all these things that aren't a blockchain. And even the blockchain itself still runs over the internet, right? All the data gets transmitted over physical wires, which means data centers and routing centers are still playing a pivotal part in delivering the blockchain data to your end device, and so that everyone can take part in the ecosystem.
It kind of seems like these two things are disconnected, this conversation in Zero, but it's interesting because this is actually like pivotal in the growth that you expect Zero to have in the future. So I think like this second part of this conversation is almost just as interesting as the first part, if I had to say so. You talk about capital formation, equity, securities. We see a lot of people moving, or at least hoping for, a token tied to equity in a company, or basically some more legalities and things forming around these tokens. Has that been something you've given thought to? Is there like, at some point, if legalities allow it, could this token actually represent equity or some level of equity in the company? Just any thoughts there? I'd be interested.
If I can add on to that question as well, have you seen that in your circle when, as you talk with lawyers and senators, is that something that they have an opinion on?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So this was brought up over a really fun dinner conversation with 3 of the biggest lawyers in the area, in the entire industry. And they were like, can I talk about it? Yeah, I can talk about that one. They're representing one of the people in Mango DAO with all this stuff going on with there. They have like an unwrapped DAO. And they think a lot of people in the industry, I'm finding they think DAOs are pretty unnecessary for that kind of stuff, but that there is absolutely a place that exists for marking or representing equity for a company on chain in that manner, and that exists. How that's done, there's so many different ways to do it that like I'm not qualified to say that, but I can say that like I'm gonna give you a call and I'm gonna schedule some time with my lawyer because she's amazing. She will talk your ear off. Former Army gal.
Nice.
She sold propane and propane accessories back in the day too, before she was a lawyer, right after she got out of the Army. So if you like King of the Hill jokes, you'll love her. And she is brilliant, represents one of the I think one of the best boutique firms in the industry, where, you know, if you can't afford $100,000 down deposit for the massive firms, she runs one of the best boutique firms. Like I said, she already works in crypto for years now.
What's her name?
Her name is Jill Witherspoon, or Wither. I'm gonna look it up. It's in my email. They're all in my email, but I will absolutely shout her out on my socials and I'll forward it to you guys as well.
Yeah, you should. And I think there's a lot of people, especially that watch our show, that are so in the trenches, in the weeds with crypto legalities and stuff, building projects. I think that's actually a really interesting connection to have. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, she's I think she's amazing. Is that a question here? When do you plan on pushing marketing?
Oh yeah, there you go. There it is. Tony Bubbaloni. Yeah. When do you plan to push marketing of Zira, and how do you plan to market it?
Marketing. There have been some thoughts, and they're in the background, and I make passive connections. Like at NABS, I met really sweet lady. She's doing the media. She's the on-screen spokesperson for the Riot chain, and she did Fox News, and she's a producer. And so like I've talked to, and I grew up in LA. So like I know how a movie gets made. I grew up around, where the pig gets slaughtered and the bacon gets made when it comes to movies, marketing, TV shows, all that stuff. So I'm not just by passively living there, I understand how a movie gets made, how a TV show gets made, how a marketing campaign gets made. And to kind of answer your question though, like there is no plans to do that yet. Like that is well in hand. There are like notes that are written down. There's a plan we could implement, but you guys have been so amazing with pushing this, with getting us to the benchmarks that we need just as a company to grow organically as a community, to, like do the migration, to start collecting fees, to collect enough fees to pay for me to live and eat, pay for a couple other engineers, but also pay for the attorneys that we need to answer these questions and go to these conferences and continue to grow. That it's just been more of a self-reinforcing loop. Like you guys have done that for me to the point where, until we have like a physical product that I should put on the air and sell like Trezor or like Ledger, if we're doing, let's put it this way, if we're doing marketing before that, something has gone wrong, because you guys have made organic growth so easy for us as a community, which is again why I want to thank you.
Dax,
you don't need to.
Dax, how do you do this without crypto? We love the Believe ecosystem. We love this idea of internet capital market and giving people with just ideas and visions the idea to bootstrap and fundraise money without maybe giving up equity or whatever it might be. Before crypto, how would you have been able to build something like this with no money coming in? With like what you would have to go on the VC route, maybe, or raise VC. Have you thought about that, or just maybe
I thought about that, but there's no need for VCs. Why would I give up control when odds are VC will want me to build something different, when there's honestly no rush with this as well. Like there's obviously market pressure and stuff like that to get a product out, and community pressure to get that stuff out. But with a VC and with using essentially capital to build a runway, right? The traditional VC route, like, because I lived in San Francisco, right? I've been around especially the companies that do Y Combinator, if you know what that is. Yeah. Y Combinator, yeah. So I know Y Combinator companies, that traditional route of, okay, you got $500,000, you got to build or die in 6 months. You got to scale, build or die, and establish cash flow in 6 months. There's no reason to do that with what we're doing. It's a math thesis. It was the first 3 months I told the community, I don't even know if this works. You got to wait for me to do the proofs. and to make sure the math checks out and you get it validated. And they waited on me through that whole process, and we're working to expand. And so for me, like, why would I put myself through that when the purpose of the technology is to encounter problems and to solve them reasonably with reasonable, responsible, engineering decision making, rather than rushed, market, VC pressured, decision making, which will ultimately cloud and devalue, or maybe not devalue, but like dilute the meaningfulness of the product that we put out, when there's no need to do that, when we can take our time, build it correctly, build it responsibly. And then in terms of like VC versus like coal sales or like other things, we've really been able to establish, at least we hope with this short term, or this 30 to 90 days is our really testing period, right? With this migration just completing, wrapping down, and us getting the keys back we need to transfer to Meteora in the next 30 days, that 30 to 90 day window will tell us exactly what that cash flow looks like. You know what I mean? And maybe we will need to do that VC thing at some point. But I don't feel the pressure or the urgency to do that.
Do you think this would be possible without crypto? I mean, obviously it's a crypto product, but do you even think bootstrapping this and having this time? Yeah.
Maybe if I was like vice president of engineering at Google and I worked only 20-hour days at Google, and then had, my $500,000 base comp package plus stock options, and only worked 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week, and then spent the rest of my time on this and dumped all of my spare cash into this. But who's going to do that?
If everything was completely perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the most powerful thing, like just crypto in general. I mean, we just have a way of coming together, and your community has collectively seen, huge potential in this, and have basically given you what you needed to push this forward. So, I mean, I think that's just a that's just a testament to the power of community, if you will.
Yeah, it's awesome. No, the community's been amazing. I want to learn a little bit more about the communities that you guys have talked to, and what you guys have done, like with communities, and how you guys grew your show, especially. I haven't heard a lot about that.
Dude, let's chat, man. I know you got to hop real quick for a couple minutes, so go ahead and do that. We'll chat. Yeah, chill. What we'll talk with Dax about then maybe is kind of going to run us back to what we just mentioned, but the different ways tokens can be used, whether some are equities, some are buybacks and burns, some are like, there's all these different ways to look at a token now. I think Dax would be really interested in this ownership coin, or the futarchy method, the conversation we had with Profit from MetaDAO.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's something he would kind of conceptualize, me interested in.
I guess the other thing is, like, is there like a migration system or something like that for MetaDAO? I mean, I guess really not, because it's just, there has to be that supply control with tokens and all that. So,
well, migration probably wouldn't be an option. Zero just finished migration from I think PumpSwap or whatever they were on before, is AMM, or they said Radium's AMM to this Meteor AM. So they just migrated, and now they have the different fee structure, which is nice. So I don't even know if migration would be another option, but it is an interesting conversation, because I think the ownership model is super unique and interesting.
Yeah, dude. I honestly, like, I dare say that MetaDAO has cracked at least the crypto native side of it, right? Like, you have a lot of other platforms that are working mostly on this is MetaDAO, guys. We've been covering this for a little bit.
Great opportunity to buy that tip.
And like, before we even go further, shout out to you guys. 5.3K viewers right now on this live stream. So shout out to you guys. If you're new to the stream, welcome. If you're on YouTube, welcome. If you're on Kick, welcome. We're here Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. But yeah, so MetaDAO. I think it's basically solved the crypto native side of, like, if you want to call it token holder rights, if you want to call it just like community, like true community driven protocols. It's not just like, a meme. It's not just a word that's kind of thrown out there on a white paper. It's actually and Dax, we kind of want to get your opinion on this, because MetaDAO essentially creates, like, when they launch unruggable tokens. So essentially, you launch on their you're able to fundraise on their platform. You can launch, and you token holders basically use their supply in a prediction market, basically, that makes decisions,
Governance.
and yeah, governance, and like they basically can decide on what can be done with the treasury, what can be done with the rest of the supply. They can make decision on what's done with the protocol. So you really get live and real community feedback, and it's not in this like memeified DAO structure. It's and you can help me out here.
Yeah, I guess
Dom.
I'll put it like this in terms of like what it would be for Zira. And again, I'm just like interested in your opinions first and foremost. But you've talked about how strong your community is, and you love community opinion. For example, with MetaDAO, you have these ownership tokens, and your piece of the token, just like normal government's tokens, goes towards voting and raising votes. And so what you do is you have basically full company control, and there obviously are push and pulls to this. But if anything needs to be done with the company, you would raise a vote, and the community would go and vote on it through this futarchy decision-making process. Again, it's a little complicated to explain, so you would have to kind of study up on it. But the interesting idea here would be like, hey, you want to raise in your salary, raise about, hey, I need to raise my salary for this, this, and this, and I would really appreciate that. Like, we can take from our show treasury if you guys vote for that and give me the green light. And so it actually adds like, and then, hey, if you guys want revenue share from a certain amount of profits, you guys can vote on that. If you guys, so the company's decision and control is actually in the community's hands, but at the same time, it's not like just take. You can still get some back from it. It's a little complicated, but are you picking up at all what I'm saying here?
Yeah, no, I am, and I think it's a really great platform that's formalizing, if I'm picking up what you're putting down correctly, the formalizing, like, I'm a member of the Fox DAO and the Austin, Texas developer DAO, right? So like I'm a member of that, and like the Fox DAO does pretty good. I want to say they're 40 or 100 million, something like that market cap, right? And so like when they want to make a decision, they have a great user interface holders go into, but they built it all in-house, right? And it looks similar to this, but it's all built in-house. And so, they do that exact same thing, when they want to unlock part of the treasury or hire a new engineer, something like that, it goes to a community vote. And I think that's powerful. Again, though, I think that there's a privacy question that needs to be answered in this context, right? So, one of the problems we ran into with the Zera, right, at least me coming from like a traditional startup hackathon kind of sense, I was like, okay, well, why is our on-chain war chest subject to everybody's scrutiny, And so maybe creating like a privacy threshold as well, where like, being able to shield the entire on-chain treasury, but use zero knowledge proofs. So if the treasury or the community, tries to sell, $1 million worth, that would really affect the price. So there's a day waiting period. The community votes on it, and a zero knowledge proof is issued to let you know, hey, this action is coming, vote for or against it. But otherwise, if it's well under that, or maybe just a 5K removal or a 20K removal, that, just to cover conventional business expenses that you don't want to have to continually explain, that can remain private. That can be treated just as if it was on your private books. And so, we've thought about building products like that as well. Like I said, I have that whole R&D kind of thought process file in that section, because there's a difference between governance and complete transparency, which I think is important for when you're governing something as a government. But when you're building a product, and maybe this is where I'm wrong, and maybe this is where it's like different from other meme coins and stuff, right? Is Zera's end goal is to release a product. You can't build a product. You can't build a car by committee, right? Have you ever heard that phrase? You can't build a car by committee. And so there still needs to be someone in the lead making a yes or no decision on engineering frameworks, on cost benefit analysis, on hiring. And like I said, and you mentioned earlier, like I love and respect the hell out of my community, but I don't think I'd ever leave hiring up to a community vote. I don't think I would. You know what I mean?
Well, I think Steve Jobs is the one that said this. It's the people don't actually know what they want, right?
Exactly.
No one actually knows what they want. And so I think it is important to have that governing deciding factor where like the CEO, the founder, like they have the ultimate decision. I think that's valuable. I don't know. It's a push-pull, something we're trying to figure out every day on this show, which is why we get founders from all sorts of different protocols, platforms, and launch pads on to explain their side of the story. And I don't know. It's just super interesting.
Yeah,
But
and I think some things that will answer that question too are coming out, like I said, because we're answering the legislative question. When that happens and we get formalism from the government and like the SEC and stuff like that, like yes, things like pump fund might go away because of laws and legislation, and we might not like that. But when that comes in, then it becomes a regulated security. Then you have absolute confidence that these founders are going to do it. Otherwise, they're going to jail because they broke the law. And so, we don't always, we're in crypto. We don't like the government anywhere near our shit, honestly. But it does give you that faith essentially, and that trust factor that we don't have right now. And all these companies are moving around trying to create software or math or on-chain solutions to these governance problems. While the government is still catching up, and they might become redundant. That company you just showed me might be dead in 5 years because a law came in that solves all of the regulatory problems that they're trying to solve and keeping people accountable. You know what I mean? And so I think it's a matter of, for us right now, and for holders or for traders or just whoever, it's a meme coin. It's going to be an unregulated security. You're taking all the risk on that. And when it's someone like me who wants to build a product, it is going to be up to you to use your bullshit meter. And that we should do a little bit less of the community expecting things and more let the leaders, because I've done this before, right? I have worked for MetaMask. I've built products before. I even worked at X as an intern. I've built products before. And so kneecapping someone or saying you have to do it this way because everybody else is doing it this way, sometimes forces creators or founders into doing something they wouldn't normally do, which will end up crippling the product in the long run. And so being able to both trust your community, but have the community has the trust in me to make hiring decisions. They don't go ask, oh, well, who'd you go get? Or are you going to, do this thing or that thing? They offer suggestions. I think a lot of them are brilliant, like we had earlier. But, we have a really, really great two-way relationship, and it's an amazing street to be on, honestly.
Yeah, we've sort of seen this life cycle in crypto. I think when crypto originally came out, it was like, hey, this is really interesting. You can do things on chain. There's no government intervention. It's really cool. And then I think people started taking advantage of that when we got to the part where people started launching rugs and basically saying, hey, I can get away with whatever I want on chain. It's like the Wild West. And now we're kind of coming full circle where it's like, okay, we really do need regulations. There's a lot of value. We love a lot of the beauty with crypto, but there is some necessity for regulations and that to fall into place. So it's an interesting balance we're seeing in life cycle.
Oh, absolutely. And we talked about it, right? There was a talk at NABS about credit unions picking up digital assets. Like I said, capital markets. One of the really cool things that kind of jumps back to the data center thing is we're using on-chain metrics and systems to optimize power delivery, water delivery, so that we can make data centers cheaper to run, and the compute and the overlying, the overall, at some level, that also affects, Solana and Ethereum transaction fees. And so just by investing in blockchain technology, there's this really cool one that measures the real-time price of electricity and the real-time usage of a data center, and then buys electricity from a different provider so that you always are running with the cheapest cost of electricity. You're always validating Solana, mining Bitcoin with the cheapest amount of...
An arbitrage on electricity.
Yeah, no, it's insane. It's insane, right? And that's all being done on blockchain, which is super, super, super cool.
Yeah, crazy. Chill, you got anything, brother?
I think no, I think I've covered a lot of my questions on my end. Do we have anything else in chat? I'm checking.
We've just been chilling, had some good conversation. I don't know, Dax, anything you want to cover?
Just that
I know you wanted to cover the story of MCG at one point.
Yeah, I did. I want to hear about how did you guys start as a group?
Chill, I'll let you take it away.
Cool. So our producer Josh, he's somewhere in the background, but he's usually on stream with us. But today it's Thanksgiving in Canada. But Josh came to me with the idea behind the stream, and we kicked it off in what was it, April, earlier this year. Basically streaming regularly every single week. We had a community, and I've done stuff like this before in the past, where I've done spaces or different things, but it was all too much for a solo act, so I let it go. But now, kind of having Josh and having another someone else to kind of like give ideas and other things, while I can cover content and one side of it, he can cover another. And so we were streaming, and Dom actually was like showing up to the streams regularly. He would give us suggestions on who we should bring on to the show. Whenever we do bring them on the show, he'd ask like super detailed questions, and it just got to the point where I'm like, bro, like let's bring Dom on, bro. Let's stop playing around. Like let's bring Dom in. Like, I mean, he's been on every stream. He's been consistent. And then me and Dom, we've known each other for years, like trading together on ETH and things of that nature. So I've known Dom like previously. I know that he's just a legend. He's just a good guy. Never involved in anything crazy. Like, and you hear about like, I mean, all this stuff around like KOLs and scams and all this stuff, but he's never been mixed up in any of that stuff. And I've always known him to be a pretty cool dude. So we teamed up with Dom, and now we have the pleasure of all three of us, kind of growing this stream. And we started our Twitter account, because we used to stream from our individual accounts. But we started our Twitter account back in August, at the beginning of August. And since then, we've done, multiple millions in terms of impressions. We do probably six figures, probably a quarter to half a mil impressions on a weekly basis. Viewership, as you can see today, we're almost at like 6,000 viewers, I believe, at this point now. Yeah, like we're like 5.6 thousand viewers. And that's a credit to the Zera community as well. So shout out to you guys, and appreciate you guys showing up. But it's been a crazy road, man. I mean, this stream is mostly focused on ICM projects. And when we say ICM, it's really synonymous with utility projects. And that's where my passion has always been in the space, and where I've always focused my content. I always like, covering serious builders, people looking to build something amazing. And that's honestly what made Zera so attractive in terms of an interview, Dax. So like, credit to you and what you're building as well. But with ICM, it was very, very dead. It was a very dead narrative, so, April, May, June, July, like those are like, just we're literally just grinding our faces into the floor, because there's no interest in that sector. And then finally, in August, like I think a couple weeks into August, we finally, ICM catches a wave, because it really is an important sector, and what's being done there is can change literally everything. Like we just talked a little bit about MetaDAO and what they're doing. But this is such an important step for crypto, such an important step for our industry, and turning ourselves from this kind of like wild, wild west to an actual serious place for Web2 founders and entrepreneurs to build something. And so we wanted to highlight that with this stream. And, it took a lot of work to, get this off the ground and continue doing it. But, happy to be doing it with Josh and Dom. I can tell you that for sure.
That's awesome. And you hit on something really, really important that I think we totally missed, and is a huge topic that we could totally touch on. But it's that you met Dom, and you're like, you knew him from these places, was never involved in anything, sketchy or whatever else. And it's that validation, or using, you've built a company right around this brand this show. And some of the things that like blew my community's mind, which I thought was day one, step zero type shit, was forming a company, going to a local area, forming a company, forming a legal relationship with your co-founders and your underwriters, and having a piece of paper contract between you and them. And it seems like that attitude really went away with a lot of crypto, where people didn't realize, wait, I need an LLC, or I need a C Corp, or I need an S Corp in order to to do these things and protect yourself from liability. And absolutely. And I think it's an underrated tool, right? We have 200 years of business in this country alone where lawyers got together to solve the problems of how to start a company, how to run a company, and how to do it. If you're going to try and reinvent the wheel and not rely on those tools after 200 years, even if it's an entirely new space like crypto, it seems kind of dumb to me. You know what I mean? Do you see a lot of projects like form LLCs, form companies early on or later? Where does that step usually come in, or has it even come in for you guys yet?
It's been a more recent thing.
Yeah,
Sure.
I would say that's kind of like a driver behind some of the questions that we've been asking you, because again, like ICM is like really new, and we've seen a lot of people experiment with how to give tokens intrinsic value. So we see some people trying to do that via like buybacks that are connected to revenue. But as of late, we've seen a lot more innovative ways of tying or innovative ways of giving tokens value, such as tying it to equity. So there's like an equity anchored model. I remember SOAR, they're working on I think it's called a DSP token standard. They're also working on a way of tying equity to tokens. MetaDAO is working on kind of like I believe, from what I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Dom, MetaDAO, there are emissions, there are token emissions, I believe. And what they do is the token holders can control those emissions, and they can control kind of what is done with, and there's a treasury for that particular project, and they can also control what's done with that treasury. And I mean, not everything, the founder needs to ask about, but there are certain things where it's like, okay, like maybe I need to engage the community on this. So we've seen like all these different setups coming to light, and it's just a matter of figuring out, okay, which one works the best, or is there not even a one size fits all? Maybe it's just what works for your particular project. Maybe there's someone that is already functioning, already generating revenue, and maybe one launch pad or one token standard fits them, and maybe one fits another. So I think it all depends, but this is literally what this stream is uncovering, is just this live cutting edge this cutting edge movement within crypto that's essentially moving toward the regulation that we see coming. We see regulations easing within the US, and so it's just a matter of like, how are these two things going to come together? We saw recent things like the exemption rule, the innovative exemption rule from the SEC.
Yep.
So we see things coming out, and we don't know how this will play out, but all we do know is it will be streamed here.
The truth is, we didn't see that conversation happening anywhere else, right? We want to find out, and maybe there is no one single answer that works best, but we want to find out, what does the future look like? Who's doing it best? And no one's having these conversations with founders where they can get real, get vulnerable, understand the company ins and outs, and ask the tough questions. And we thought there was a gap and a lack there. And so it was really obvious just coming together and saying, hey, we already do this personally as investors. I remember I would get on calls with these founders all the time, just personally do it. And I'm like, why don't we stream this? Why don't we have this to where everyone can see it? Because this is what everyone wants to know. And I think it's like so important that humanizing and understanding the mind and vision behind a founder, to get them on stream like we did with UDAX and explain and see their vision, see their passion, hear it in their voice. There was clearly a gap there, not a lot of people doing it. And so it was just such an obvious place for us to fill. But yeah, so interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, and I can speak on our structure, right? And because there isn't a one size fits all. That's kind of why business exists and why lawyers exist, is what I'm learning, is that when you have a problem, whether that is capital equity, whether that is founder ownership, whether that is this way or another way, you can do founder agreements without allocating equity. You can do all these things. I'm specifically, what I have deigned to do specifically is talk to the lawyers and essentially write a custom operating agreement that specifically says that regardless of who owns the company and whatever percent or whatever equity, the fees that are made from the pool are the property of the company and are to be used as business cash flow, never to be used to pay out owners or equity, right? So all the money that would be made from trading fees or from the company doesn't get paid out to executives or to owners as bonuses. It remains as the cash flow needed to either save money, build up a war chest, or to hire more developers so that we can scale. And so I've explicitly made that clear in legal terms too, that like nobody, and even if, because we're just an LLC right now, but if we were ever to go to file for C Corp status, or for those things for investors to buy large chunks of equity directly in the company, they would get none of the money from the fees, because that's locked into supporting development, supporting the community, and addressing business needs and expenses. And by making that separation, it kind of the opposite of, because you guys were talking about rolling token ownership into equity. By doing the opposite and keeping them clear means that owners don't get any specific, people with equity don't get any advantage over normal token holders. That way, everybody's incentivized to just have the price go up. And by doing that, we increase trade volume, which increases our longevity as a business and our ability to hire and produce products that hopefully drive the price up.
You're muted.
Oh, am I muted? Oh.
No, sorry,
no.
I'm muted. Imagine
I
Dax
just
had
did
that
that
whole
rant muted.
We were just quiet for 5 minutes. No, I think that's interesting. How do you communicate that with the community? Did they know that you had this contract in place or legal agreement in place that the fees are always going to be dedicated towards growth of the company, or is this the
They
first
do
time?
now. They do now.
See, like that's important stuff though, right? Like as a community member, I would love to know that. And
Yeah.
just to know, like, hey, legally, if you ever try to just run off with this money or throw bonuses at yourself, or whoever to, some form of getting money, to go back to them rather than the business, like it's important that the community knows this stuff. How can you like?
Well,
I
that
don't
wasn't
know.
really a decision that was like made until this past week. Like, because until I met with the firms at the conferences, we didn't know who we were going to go with a law firm, and we're signing them this week, and we're getting that paperwork ordered. And I have core people who help me on the core team on the back end, Zardan, Mihad. They're amazing, and I want to make sure they're recognized for what they're doing, helping me manage the community and run the community, because I wouldn't be here without them. So figuring out a founders agreement and how to structure this, to give them that recognition of helping me build this, again, while giving them what they deserve with that recognition and, maybe the equity, but also protecting what we're building. And we kind of all sat down, and it was when we sat down with the lawyers, they're like, where do you want to go with this? And do you want equity? Do you want this? How do we have this conversation? Which feelings run high because people want percentages and all that kind of stuff. And I was amazed and humble to hear both of them go, no, whatever, we hold tokens, we just want whatever is best for the business. And so having co-founders that literally stand up and say, it's not necessarily about that. It's about the community, and it's about what's doing best for the business. Whatever, the smart thing, whatever protects us the most legally, and whatever is best for the business, are going hand in hand as we build this. And so now that we've got that settled down, we're writing it out, we're figuring it out, we're retaining a law firm, and and moving forward with that process, because even releasing software, we can only go as fast as the lawyers or the regulatory agencies tell us we can go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I love it. I think that's super important. That communication transparency is only bullish and further supports the case you made here. So thanks, Dax. I want to keep this here, maybe wrap it at 2.5 hours, which is we're pushing here. Keep it like that so people can watch it and not get too nervous at the long time when they see it on YouTube. But we appreciate you coming on, Dax. As always, we pulled you up twice now back, but this is really it.
No, I appreciate that. And like I said, most important thing, even if you don't support the project, go vote.
There you go. That's Dax's message, parting message. Peace, guys.